All rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
United
United
States
States of America,
to the republic
to the republic
for
for which it stands,
one nation,
one
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and
justice for all.
Remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of veterans, servicemen, and women, and those who have been the ultimate sacrifice. You may be seated. The clerk will call the roll.
Anderson. Anderson. Anderson.
He's connecting to audio. You can see it.
All right, I'll get back to him. Kamel.
Come out here.
Condon.
Condon here.
Pearl.
Here.
Di Maria.
Di Maria here.
Linehan.
Linehan here.
Murphy. O'Malley.
O'Malley here.
Spatafora.
Spatafora here.
Winslow.
Winslow here.
Sika.
Sika here.
Anderson.
Anderson here.
All present.
Under the provisions of the open meeting law, for those of you in attendance, please be informed that MATV, along with City of Malden and John Mayara resident, will be recording this evening's meeting. Again, there will be audio and video recording of this evening's meeting. First order of business.
Order of business is public comment, and I have 12 emails. And I believe there's 2 people that are on the call today that would like to speak, Janelle DeVitz and Kimberly Gillette.
Yes, and I also see that John Mayara is in the question and answer box, so that will fill up the time slots that we have. So do you want to read the emails first, City Clerk?
Okay, so there's 3 different topics they're talking about. There's 11 email, or there's 9 emails and 2 people speaking on the marijuana resolve. There's 1 email to speak on the road construction, and there's 2 emails on the diversity inclusion coordinator. Maybe I'll start. You want me to start with the marijuana ones?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Hello, my name is Laura Gold, and I live at 480 Main Street, Malden. I'm writing to oppose the proposed pause on soliciting additional applications for marijuana licenses. The voters of Massachusetts and of Malden made their will clear in 2016 when they voted yes on question 4. And this proposed obstruction denies the Malden community opportunities for business, especially amidst a global pandemic where many businesses have lost income and the city has received decreased tax revenue. Implementing obstructionist policies denies community members who have already put in bids for retail marijuana shops from fair access to implement their businesses. Marijuana poses significantly fewer risks than alcohol, yet liquor stores are open and new liquor stores have set up shop even during the pandemic. Marijuana shops should be afforded the same right to exist without being hindered by policies that deny the will of the voters. It has been 4 years since Malden residents voted yes on question 4 to legalize recreational marijuana. Please do not pause on soliciting applications and allow members of the community who have already put in bids continue through the process unobstructed. Thank you, Laura Gould.
Does it have an address for Laura, Greg?
Main Street?
Main Street. Yeah, she's 480 Main Street. That was in the beginning of the email.
Okay, I missed it, sorry.
Yep. My name is Warren Lynch and I live at 412 Pleasant Street, Malden, where I've been for over 10 years now. When the city first agreed to accept application for cannabis shops, it was written into the ordinance that it would be done on a rolling monthly basis. Since we are Malden residents and not millionaires, we were not ready in month 1 like some wealthy applicants were, but we were ready in month 2. In month 2, June of 2019, our company Benevolent, wow, I can't even pronounce that.
Benevolent.
Benevolent.
Oh, my God, thank you. Jeez. Botanicals gave our written intent to apply in the next monthly round of applications to the mayor's office and the clerk of the CLEC board. We prepared our entire 200-page application and have been paying rent on our space since, have raised a substantial amount of investment money, and have attended every meeting of CLEC, making ourselves seen and paying attention to all the details, patiently waiting for the second monthly round to begin. We are the only Malden residents to apply. We have deep community roots in Malden. We have a more compliant location than any other applicant except Cappy's. And unlike any other applicant, we have written letters of recommendation from one of the founders of community policing, like we have in Malden, from the national political director of the Libertarian Party, and from the former chair of the Melrose Democrats. We are deeply qualified. I was the co-host of a radio show that won Best Cannabis News Source in 2019, and our chief operation officer, my partner, Steve McMorris, did her bachelor's in neuroscience on the effects of cannabis on the brain. And as active Malden community organizers, we feel that we have a lot to bring to the table that helps the Malden community. As our company would pay for lead pipes, road improvements, new hydrants, and many other problems, which applicants from out of town may not even know exist. And unlike them all, we have run community assistance and funding programs with people from our own Malden community. As a company, we will not only put money into the community, we'll run the kind of ethical, community-connected business, which is what everyone wants in a cannabis shop applicant. Because this is where all our friends are, and we live here, we are certain and can prove that our business will have a positive effect on the community rather than a negative one. Therefore, on behalf of benevolent botanicals, and anyone else who has been waiting for the second round, especially any other Malden residents, I hope that you consider an amendment for the CLEC to at least consider applications which have been waiting all this time, especially if they're Malden residents, rather than having to pay rent for another full year before having been considered, when we could be helping the community as soon as we open. Thank you very much, Warren Lynch. I write to express my opposition to the astonishing resolution that some city councils are sponsoring to pause the process of retail marijuana licenses. The voters of Malden convincingly voted in favor of bringing such retail businesses to the city. The process to consider them was painstakingly developed, and applicants have been respecting that process. While many surrounding cities have begun to reap the revenue benefits from these businesses, Malden has dragged its feet. Claims that any Malden voters did not know what they were voting for is a ridiculous, weak argument. As this were even a valid excuse. Has there ever been a fraction of the hand-wringing going on about marijuana for the city's many liquor stores or donut shops, or anything else that someone might deem unhealthy? I sense there's a double standard. The introduction of retail marijuana to Massachusetts has gone smoothly. It is likely to go smoothly in Malden. It's well past the time for the city council to do its job, continue the process of vetting applicants, and stop indulging in anarchist gateway drug scare tactics that are really quite laughable in 2020. We have much more to worry about these days, but retail marijuana is low on the list. Let's bring these shops to Malden and use the resultant revenue wisely. Thank you, Paul Sherman, 284 Ferry Street. Good evening. I'm writing to express my distress that the Malden City Council is trying to turn back the clock and bypass the will of the voters by creating years of unnecessary delays for the opening of recreational adult universe cannabis shops in Malden. As a disabled person with a notoriously painful connective tissue disorder, affordable access to high quality cannabis has been absolutely essential to the management of my condition and my quality of life. I'm allergic to the top 2 medications used to treat the many kinds of pain resulting from my disorder, and without cannabis, I would not have any functions of quality of life at all. In light of this, I'm ready to dispel some of the myths and misunderstandings around cannabis. I think most people who are new to the topic, when they think about recreational customers, picture rowdy college students. In reality, the fastest growing demographic in the recreational customer base is 55 years or older. In fact, if cannabis is available, roughly 50% of people who take opiates to manage their pain will voluntarily switch to cannabis, which is much safer and for most patients has fewer side effects than heavy-duty pharmaceuticals. A recent study, Kruger 2018, found that 78% of people that use cannabis did so to treat medical or health conditions. 42%, nearly half of all users, said that cannabis allowed them to completely stop taking a pharmaceutical drug, while an additional 38% cut back the use of once they had taken access to cannabis. As a Men's Health report on the study notes, people use medical weed for a wide variety of issues, including chronic pain, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, menstrual cramps, and headaches. It's also used to mitigate the adverse effects of chemotherapy and to alleviate nausea in HIV/AIDS patients. I understand that cannabis is not for everyone, just as alcohol and nicotine were not for everyone. But unlike the latter two substances, cannabis has significant positive medical applications, as we now know that a majority of customers, even at recreational shops, are using cannabis to help manage their health and well-being. Please do not cause needless delays and obstacles for those whose lives can be positively impacted by the presence of cannabis shops in Malden, which is what we as a community voted for. Thank you, Steve McMorris, 412 Pleasant Street, Malden. I would like to provide my public comment for the City Council meeting on Tuesday relating to 372-20, resolved that the City of Malden Cannabis License Commission pause on soliciting additional applications for retail marijuana licenses so that the city can solicit voter feedback on the next municipal election on limits to the number of establishments allowed by the city. This is from James Mackle, 60 Main Street, Ward 1. My name is James, and I'm a homeowner and small landlord in Malden. I'm commenting to state my opposition to paper 372-20. I've already heard just about every complaint about cannabis. That's because a decade ago, when I was a student activist, I helped pass compassionate care and decriminalization legislation across New England. Nowadays, many people in my life use cannabis to manage their chronic illness, their medication side effects, and their mental health conditions. It's not a big deal at all, aside from how they're healthier and happier than they would have been a decade ago, which is a big deal indeed. But having fought that uphill battle, I can tell you this: the people who are holding up legally permitted retail establishments today are the same kinds of people who are holding up medicine for cancer patients back then. I know it because they're using the exact same arguments and the exact same tactics. Delay even when the science and the public support are both crystal clear. Add uncertainty even when other states and cities already have well-functioning retail sales. Keep on just asking questions, even if it means small business owners have to withdraw their bids after years in permit purgatory. It's embarrassing to hear this playbook rolled out to second-guess voters. And it's extra embarrassing that it'll hand over another year of more retail taxes to the likes of Melrose and Brookline when we're facing such a challenging budget. Nobody would accept this meddling with liquor stores or car dealerships or other businesses. So why is it justified for cannabis? The answer is not. Our existing system already has permits and citywide store limits and community meetings and every other check against bad behavior you could imagine. Adding more red tape is shameful to bypass the oversight of the CLEC, scare away small business owners, and undermine the will of the voters that overwhelmingly said yes to retail sales at the ballot box. It is my sincere hope that the council can leave the details of cannabis licensing to the CLEC and instead focus on important issues like the pandemic and the eviction crisis. Why should surrounding towns enjoy the additional tax revenue from stream of legal cannabis businesses, but not Malden? Adult recreational cannabis was voted on in 2016. Elected officials in Malden need to stop imposing their outdated opinions of cannabis on the rest of us. The people have spoken via the referendum question on legalization more than 4 years ago. Surrounding towns such as Melrose have managed to open successful cannabis businesses without incident. Malden needs to get with the times and to embrace the will of the people. Mary Wood, 35 Floral Ave, Malden. Another letter: to whom it may concern, in 2016, the citizens of Massachusetts voted to legalize the adult use of cannabis. I realize cannabis has certain outdated moral and social issues, but the health benefits far outweigh the supposed stigma. In Malden, we have liquor stores and pharmacies on every corner. We have poverty and unemployment. Dispensaries bring cannabis to our neighborhoods, but also tax revenue. I believe it's time Malden updates their outdated views on cannabis and finally embrace the voters' will in their additional taxes. Thank you, Brendan Wood, 35 Floral Ave, Malden. Another letter writes: greetings, city councilors. I'm writing today to speak up about the resolve put forward by Councilors Spatafora and co-sponsored sponsored by Councilors Murphy, Seeker, Condon, and Anderson, asking for a pause in the Malden CLC soliciting license applications for retail cannabis shops. The resolve asks for a pause until the city can solicit voter feedback in the next municipal election. But the city already received voter feedback when Malden residents voted in favor of creating a legal cannabis market. In a time where almost all businesses have uncertain futures and are worried about dramatically decreasing revenues, the city should not be setting limits on which types of businesses are allowed to thrive. Cannabis businesses offer the city a larger share of revenue than other types of businesses. In the shop currently operating in Melrose, right along our borders, one of the only businesses in the area I see consistently busy. Why would the city want to limit one of its largest potential source of revenue from businesses? Imposing this limit will only cost the city revenue while also creating a monopoly for those few lucky enough to have enough money to start the license process early. A vote in favor of the resolve is a vote against the free market and a vote against our city's future financial successes. Please consider removing all limits the city has set on cannabis businesses, not setting more. This is time for innovation, not for stifling progress. Sincerely, Jeff Taylor, 57 Mount Vernon Street, Department Number 1, Malden. That's Kimberly Gillette. Another one, Mr. Lucy, I'm submitting this to get read into the record. Opposing Council Large Spatafora's motion put a pause on the issue of license for marijuana shops. Marijuana shops provide a revenue stream previously unavailable to us. The citizens voted for this 4 years ago. Once again, the council is not listening to the will of people, similar to the overwhelming support to eliminate the trash tax in 2008. As a taxpayer who has worked on fixing the current PAYT issue for the past 11 plus years, to continue to be told we don't have the money for this quality of life issue is ridiculous. Whether or not you use marijuana, there are many who do and are willing to pay the additional fees that support our city. This is similar to licensing liquor stores. No one under 21 is allowed to purchase either liquor or marijuana. How much money is Melrose collecting on our citizens? We cannot afford to sit back and not benefit from this revenue stream. We are, if not already done, giving JRM another $250,000 a year for the next 5 years and $300,000 a year for 5 years after that. How many teachers and first responders will be let go to pay for them if we lose this revenue stream? Please stop dragging your heels and do the job our citizens voted for. We will remember those who denied the lucrative revenue stream in November 2021, respectively, Annie Opatisano, 92 Columbia Street. You want me to do the other three emails about the other issues? So this one is for the dear clerk, city clerk Lucy. I'm writing regarding my support for the bonding of $6 million for city road construction. I'm asking the city to consider appropriating $30,000 of it, which is 1/2 of 1% or 0.5% of the total amount to soil preparation and new trees. Municipal finances or priorities may not allow us to increase the yearly tree planting budget line item, but we can take a systematic approach to increasing Malden's canopy on a street-by-street basis as the roads are redone with multi-million-dollar road projects. I was fortunate enough to have my street redone a few years back and had mature trees replaced with saplings. I was alarmed when I saw them replace the tree pit dirt with the gravel-rich dirt taken from below the street asphalt. Plants don't thrive in dirt, which is defined as the mineral particles such as rocks and sand. Plants thrive in soil, which is dirt with organic matter that includes beneficial microorganisms which feed the plants and maintain moisture. I suggest the Community Forestry Program Advisory Committee be requested to provide a construction detail and specifications that can be copied to the $6 million project engineering documents, provided the tree pits with enough organic matter versus street gravel dirt. And they can also provide a rule of thumb. The design team shall attempt to meet with new trees per linear foot on streets. This will pay for itself in DPW labor and lost trees on soil with organic matter retains water and requires little additional water, whereas water runs off dirt and quickly dries it up, requiring multiple water feedings or the tree dies. Respectfully, Prisco Tomorrow, 56 9th Street. Next two was on paper 375-20. As a Malden resident, I'm very glad to see this investment move forward as part of the Mayor's Unite Malden 2020 pledge. Having a central approach to diversity and equity in our city is essential for living out the progressive, inclusive values that make our diverse community strong. However, I also have serious concerns about whether this is a big enough investment to really deliver the goals of the pledge. This summer, I joined 150 other Maldonians in writing a letter to Mayor Christensen asking him to do more for racial justice, urging him to double down on the Unite Malden 2020 commitments after those were not included in the annual budget. A group of us met with the mayor and shared our concerns, which included the fact that, as the role was described, the planned hire of a diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator could be a setup for failure if it didn't receive enough support. Not having seen a copy of the expected DEI coordinator job description, I am confident that this is too much work for too little money to have an impact we need in Malden. It is an impossible portfolio, including sitting in on every hiring panel for city openings, assisting with the city's ADA transition plan, aiding a number of other groups like the Human Rights Commission, liaison with community groups, and setting equity and inclusion plans for the entire city. This Job Rights Commission liaising with community groups and setting equity and inclusion plans for the entire city. The job does not pay a director level salary, looking at the annualized salary, not just the prorated amount included in the order for the remainder of the fiscal year, and only asks for a few years of experience, whereas comparable roles in the Boston area at nonprofits or universities expect twice as much training and expertise and pay accordingly. Personally, as a nonprofit executive who has been helping to lead DEI workers for years, I estimate this portfolio requires at least 3 separate positions to do well. I can attest that it takes complex, long-term work at the highest levels to diversity your workforce and to shift culture and policy to be more inclusive and anti-racist. Furthermore, this job is explicitly asking for applicants who are Black, Indigenous, or people of color to hold other marginalized identities. I do not want our community to bring in someone in this role to potentially be one of the few people of color in leadership and then set them up to fail, following an all too familiar pattern in tokenism in institutions. I urge the council to support the order, but to follow up with the tough questions about what it would really take to live up to the progressive, inclusive ideals set forth in the Unite Malden 2020 pledge, and be prepared to support that with additional appropriations as needed. Sincerely, Carrie McDonald, 33 Pear Street, Malden. And the final email is, Dear City Councils and City Clerk Lucy, I'd like to submit the following public comment regarding item 375-20 of the November 10th City Council meeting. I'd like to firstly to applaud the mayor and the city council for taking this important first step towards creating a more equitable city by seeking to hire a diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator. I appreciate the city for heeding community input and formalizing this effort. I wanted to note, however, that given the broad scope of this DEI coordinator's responsibilities, I believe the compensation ought to be higher. Devising and implementing such broad policies across entities as this person will be asked to do is a director level responsibility that should be compensated comparably, consistent with other department heads of the city. Further, I would suggest that you include in the job posting a preference quality for candidates with proficiency in a non-English language that has a large presence in Malden. Because many Maldonians speak languages other than English, this qualification ought to be the priority for the hiring committee. I would also encourage city officials and community members to be proactive in their outreach efforts around this job posting. One key barrier to attracting a range of candidates is lack of outreach to different networks and platforms. It's important that we open this opportunity up beyond the usual suspects. Finally, I would ask that the council, the mayor, and the other city officials empower the future DEI coordinator to be bold and creative in their reforms of the city. I ask that you not make this a token position, but rather one that can help Malden be the inclusive and equitable city I know it can be. Thank you for your time and opportunity. Monique Ching, 153 Salem Street, Malden.
Great, thank you. City Clerk, I am not the host at the moment. Do you want to make me the host so I can allow Mr. Vitz, Ms. Gillette, and
Yep.
Ms. Mayara speak?
Don't make me the host.
No, I know that. No, Craig, okay, wait a minute, hold on, Craig. You got to make JD the host now.
I'm really the host? All right, hold on
Yeah.
1 second.
Don't
Give me
end
one
it.
second. I'm not gonna end it. I'm not gonna end it. Give me 1 second. I'm being very careful here. 1 second.
Greg, it says you're the host.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna change it right now to Jadine. I wasn't paying attention on the side here. Hold on. I didn't have this part up. Jadine, you should be the host now.
I am the host. Perfect. Okay, so let me go over to here and we are bringing on Janelle DeWitz. Good evening, Janelle.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Can you
Okay,
hear me okay?
you got 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Great. I'm also talking about the resolution with respect to pausing the CLEC from moving forward with applications.
Janelle,
Um, I'll-
can you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure, Janelle DeWitz, 3 Sheridan Street, Ward 2.
Perfect. Thank you.
Although I am a member of the Cannabis Licensing Enforcement Commission, I'm speaking tonight in my personal capacity as a lifelong resident of Malden. And although I'm also a lawyer, my statement tonight should not be construed as legal advice. I became involved in Malden's cannabis ordinance in late 2016. Over the last 4 years, Malden has held some of the most robust and public debate and dialogue on this topic. It was a major issue in Malden's city elections in 2017, and drafting our current ordinance was a main priority of this body throughout 2018. And even last year, the CLEC was working nonstop throughout 2019, interviewing the initial applicants. The ordinance we have today was discussed at length in dozens of public meetings, committee hearings, and planning board sessions. Many members of the public participated in this process, and our city has been complimented by both applicants and other cities on how good our ordinance is and how well run our process has been, mainly due to the many checks and balances and straightforward steps from the CLEC to the special permit hearing to the mayor's negotiations on the CHA. This well thought out and hotly debated ordinance is clear, however, that after the initial phase of applications is closed and less than 5 licenses have been given, the CLEC shall review applications on a monthly rolling basis until 5 recreational marijuana licenses has been reached. There is no timetable on when 5 licenses must be reached, and I'm not advocating that we push through every applicant to get to 5 today, tomorrow, or even next year. But let's be clear, the resolution before you tonight is asking the CLEC to violate our city ordinance and to shut our process down altogether because either this body or the anti-marijuana residents failed to organize appropriately over the last 3+ years to put a question on the ballot regarding restrictions on the number of licenses as required by state law. If there was really such a concern or motivation to elicit feedback from our residents, why did the city council or these concerned residents fail to put the question before the largest turnout of Malden voters on this year's presidential ballot or even last year's mayoral ballot? I hope you all take a pause and ask yourself why now, 3 years later, there is a push to wait for an off-year election when we all know the turnout will be much lower and not representative of the voters citywide. If the city council wants to properly change our ordinance, there is a legal process to do that, which does not involve a non-binding resolution directing the CLEC to violate the city's current ordinance. A councilor should sponsor a paper, let it go through ordinance committee, hold public hearings, public meetings, and then vote to change the ordinance. If there are concerns on zoning, there are proper ways to address that as well. However, trying to direct the CLEC to violate the current ordinance is not appropriate and only raises questions about whether pausing at this junction would be a violation of state law. Such a pause may be argued by some to be a de facto ban on additional licenses or may be seen as limiting the number of licenses below 5, which in each case, we know only may be approved by a majority of Malden residents through a ballot question. Malden residents had 3 full years to organize and get this question on the ballot. That has not happened, and this resolution cannot cure that defect. I urge you to vote no on this resolution.
Thank you. I'm going to disable talking. Okay. Now we have Kimberly Gillette. Good evening, Kim.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Please state your name and address for the record.
Kimberly Gillette, 3 Sheridan Street, Malden, Mass. Good afternoon, counselors. The resolve before you tonight is confusing. Why would a counselor choose this method to slow progress on something that has been debated so thoroughly by so many different bodies and avenues in Malden, including the health department, police department, public hearings, planning board, during several years of dialogue. This resolve would at best support the closure of our process and at worst, protect a monopoly for the only two businesses that made it through the first phase of applications. As for counselors who agree to pause this well thought out and heavily debated process, I'm curious to know your motives as to why now. If there is pushback from constituents since 2017, as many claim, why did we not put this question before the largest turnout of Malden voters on this year's presidential ballot or even last year's mayoral ballot? No, instead, people want to wait for an off-year election when we know the turnout will be much lower. I've heard from a few counselors that they are so concerned for the children. The children. It seems the children were not on your minds when you conveniently forgot to put it on the ballot this year, or even last year, or even the year before that, when in each case, we expected a much higher turnout than next year. Some counselors are still operating from a place of fear and spreading that fear. Instead of helping constituents understand how dispensaries work and what they can mean to a community, they feed those fears because their own knowledge is lacking. Marijuana does not have the same stigma it once did. The war on drugs has been researched over and over. Banning marijuana does not fix the problems that you think you're trying to fix. Tobacco and alcohol are far more dangerous and accessible for minors. Dispensaries across the Commonwealth are open and available to visit. I urge you to visit one and see for yourself. I think you will find they are safe, clean, organized, and well-run establishments that make it far more difficult for children to access than our local tobacco or alcohol stores do. Instead, safe and controlled access to marijuana has lowered opioid addictions, overdoses, and even prescriptions. States and communities that have dispensaries are not destroyed, and instead have more tax money to invest in public health and education. Please stop letting fear get in the way of progress. I am here tonight to let you know that if the question to restrict or ban marijuana in Malden ends up on the ballot in the next 4 years, 4 years later, I personally promise to put on my sneakers, gather my friends, and knock on every door in Malden to educate people on what dispensaries actually are and what the tax revenues can mean for our city. The country as a whole is legalizing or decriminalizing marijuana. Research shows that states that choose rehabilitation are far more successful than jailing a community.
That's
Marijuana-
over the time limit. We're going over the.
Okay, sorry, Kim. We gave you
That's okay.
more than 2 minutes.
That's okay. I think I made my point.
Great, thank you. Okay, now let's see. John Mayara, isn't it? Good evening, John.
Hi, how are you? Is this thing working?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I will try to be brief because this has been flogged to death tonight. But I would like to oppose the proposed resolve because I think that it's unwise to restrict any kind of potential business development as long as it's legal and gainful. I've attended all the CLEC meetings and the community meetings too, and the process has been good overall. But if I could make one critique, it would be that we have a preoccupation with logistics. We're worried about other nearby shops, traffic, and parking. But those worries cause de facto geographical favoritism. Think about a theater district. Do people complain that, oh, there's yet another play playing? There's too many restaurants with too many people going to them? People come into the areas. Those footfalls can help businesses in an entire district. Part of our anxiety is also about development and congestion we just heard earlier today at the ordinance meeting. But there are important network effects of having people work and live close by to each other. more people can staff companies, patronize businesses, and even start businesses of their own. Congestion is a nuisance, I'll give you that. But would you accept, say, 1,000 employees in an office building that's going to cause problems? Sure. Or a Michelin star restaurant? I would. So business taxes can also help to close a revenue gap and take pressure off of homeowners, which we also heard concerns about earlier today. So in closing, try to think, where is our next $100 million of business revenue going to come from? And where is our next $1 billion of real estate assessed value going to come from if we don't allow people to start businesses, build things, and open up while there's already things nearby? Thanks.
John, have a nice night. Before we move on to the next topic, I just want to really briefly state that what Janelle and Kim mentioned, why we didn't put it on the ballot this past Tuesday. We are unable to put questions, municipal questions on a nationwide presidential election. Those need to be on ballots for a municipal election, not an election that we had last Tuesday. And the year before, we didn't put it on the ballot because we were already in the process of accepting applications. So we'll have some further dialogue. I didn't want to forget to mention that before we go into the rest of the meeting. So we'll discuss that when the resolve comes up. So City Clerk, next order of business.
Paper 336-20, mayoral appointment, Anthony Bartolo, 25 Tophet Road, Lynnfield, Mass. As a constable to serve process in the city of Malden effective October 19, 2020, and said term to expire October 23rd, 2023.
Councilor Crowe?
Motion to place on file.
On Councilor Crow's motion to place on file, seconded by
Counselor Condon.
Councilor Condon, the clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Yes.
Kamel,
Kamel, yes.
Condon,
Condon, yes.
Crow,
Yes.
DeMaria,
Yes.
Linehan,
And yes.
Murphy,
Murphy, yes.
O'Malley,
Present.
present. Spatafora,
Spatafora, yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Sika,
Speaker, yes.
paper carries.
Next order of business.
Okay, we have all those licenses.
Yeah, oh, Councilor O'Malley, you have your hand up. I apologize.
No worries. I just wanted to ask something before we moved on, and I have a feeling it's probably not going to be successful. But there seems to be a few residents that were commenting in the question and answer that they would like to address the council. Is there any appetite to suspend our rule and allow a few more people to speak?
Councilor O'Malley, I answered them in the chat, and they will have another time to be able to have public comment. Those items are only getting referred to the committee this evening. We shouldn't be having any much debate on them until they come back out on the floor. So they'll have another moment when they'll be able to have public comment, and that is when the item comes out of the committee and it's docketed for that night.
Understood.
Okay. Okay, so back to license, City Clerk.
So I'll read them all at once.
Yes, go ahead, except for the Christmas trees.
Yes, okay. Paper 337-20, petition class 2, Maxima Auto Sales, 105 Broadway, Malden, Mass, 31 cars renewal. Paper 338-20, petition class 2, Auto Tech 2, 1236 Eastern Ave, Malden, Mass, 5 cars, needs dealer plates registration. Paper 339-20, petition class 2, Broadway Auto Sales, 628 Broadway, Malden, 0 cars. Paper 340-20, petition class 2, Brothers Auto Body, 969 Salem Street, Malden, Mass, 0 cars. Paper 341-20, petition class 2 dealers, One Motors, 77 Broadway, Malden, Mass, 48 cars, Rio Auto Group. Paper 342-20, petition class 2, Hub Starters and Alternator, 172 Broadway, Malden, Mass, 4 cars. Paper 343, class 2, John Service, 200 Beach Street, Malden, Mass, 15 cars. Paper 334-20, class 2, Linden Automotive, 121 Beach Street, Malden, 19 cars. Paper 345-20, class 2, Malden Auto Brokers, 225 Eastern Ave, 20 cars. Paper 346-20, Class 2 Malden Auto Sales, 147 Ferry Street, 25 cars. Paper 347-20. Class 2 Prestige Motors, 600 Broadway, 67 cars. Paper 348-20. Class 2 Sega Auto Sales Service, 449 Ferry Street, 15 cars. Paper 349-20. Class 2 Uni Auto Center, Inc., 369 Salem Street, 20 cars. Paper 350-20. Extended hours license, Supreme Food Mart, 1018 Eastern Ave, hours 24/7. It's a renewal. Paper 351-20. Extended hours, Planet Fitness, 795 Eastern Ave, Monday 12 a.m. to Friday 9 o'clock p.m., 24 hours renewal. Paper 352-20, extended hours license, Honeydew Donuts, 691 Eastern Ave, 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. It's a renewal. Paper 353-20, extended hours license, Dunkin' Donuts, Dunkin' now, 424 Main Street, 7 days, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's a renewal. Paper 354-20, extended hours license, Dunkin', 980 Eastern Ave, 7 days, 4 a.m. to 12 a.m. It's a renewal. Paper 355-20, extended hours license, Dunkin', 57 Eastern Ave, 24/7 renewal. Paper 356-20, extended hours license, Dunkin', 200 Commercial Street, 7 days, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's a renewal. Paper 357-20, extended hours license, Dunkin', 617 Broadway, 7 days, 4 a.m. to 11 p.m. It's a renewal. Paper 358-20, extended hours license, Dunkin', 245 Pleasant Street, 7 days, 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. It's a renewal. Paper 359-20, amusement machine license, Dockside, 229 Center Street, 15 machines. It's a renewal. Paper 360-20, amusement machine licenses, Flamin' Grill and Buffet, 52 Broadway, 3 machines. It's a renewal. Paper 361-20, amusement machine license, GLS Associates, 50 Holden Street, 9 machines. It's a renewal. Paper 362-20, amusement machine license, ITAMS, Post 16, 40 Oakland Street, 4 machines. It's a renewal. Paper 363-20, amusement machine licenses, Loyal Order of the Moose, 562 Broadway, 1 machine. It's a renewal. Paper 364-20, amusement machine license, Pearl Street Station, 53 Summer Street, 2 machines. It's a renewal. Paper 365-20, amusement machine license, Town Line 10 Pin, 665 Broadway, 25 machines. It's a renewal. Paper 366-20, Chardon Livery LLC, 33 Maple Street, apartment number 402, 1 livery. It's new. Paper 367, Livery, 5 Star Car Services, Inc., 15 Mount Vernon Street, apartment number 2, 1 livery. It's new. And that's it.
Motion to refer to license.
Do I have a second?
Second.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to refer these petitions to license, seconded by Councilor Condon, the clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Anderson, yes.
Kamel,
Kamel, yes.
Condon,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Di Maria,
Di Maria, yes.
Linehan,
Linehan, yes.
Murphy,
Murphy, yes.
O'Malley,
Yep.
Spatafora,
Spatafora, yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Speaker.
Speaker, yes.
License are referred to, the petitions referred to license 11-0.
Next order of business.
Paper 368-20, petition, Christmas tree sales, Jay's Pizza and Ice Cream, 167 Center Street, Malden. It's a renewal.
Murphy.
Council Sika, President Sika, yes. Christmas tree licenses is supposed to refer them to the license committee. I'd like to vote them on the floor, the petitions on the floor this evening, if that's agreeable with the other councilors.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Yeah, I just ask if I may, Council Chair.
Yes.
We have this issue with
Every
the
year.
Christmas tree place every year.
Every year.
Every year, we pass it on the floor as if it's an emergency. Hasn't anyone been in touch with Jay's or whoever else is doing these Christmas tree applications to get them in on time, just like everyone else? I don't understand why we keep passing them like this.
Councilor Anderson, and I totally agree with you on that. And I'm happy to say that this is actually the beginning of November as opposed to December when they normally come in. We are having a license committee next week, but in today's world with COVID and small businesses and people just trying to stay afloat, I mean, this year, I think I just kind of give everybody a little bit of a pass, but I don't disagree with what you're saying. If you would prefer, we can send this to committee next week, which I've already talked to our city clerk about scheduling for license, and then it would come back to the floor the week after. But I think in, today's economy, just giving folks the ability to order their Christmas trees to, kind of maybe move some of the angst forward in our community. I wasn't struggling with it. If you are, as vice chair of the committee, I certainly would be happy to.
I don't have any strong feelings enough to hold it over for another couple of weeks. But I wish that perhaps the clerk can get in touch with the petitioner and remind them that we keep making this exception every year. And as long as we keep making this exception, they're going to keep coming in, whether it's this year with COVID or something else. But they should recognize as many years. Well, we have set the pattern. They submit the application is late, we move it ahead. But I think we ought to at some point stop that. I
don't disagree with you,
Having
Counselor.
said that, I'd say Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everything. Yes.
Neil sounds more like Scrooge than Santa this year.
Well, not Scrooge. We pass it every year. All I'm saying is, here it is, an application. This isn't the first time this petitioner has come before us looking for this application for the Christmas trees. And every year we say the same thing, but we pass it. So we will continue to pass it.
And, Councilor Anderson, you are absolutely right. And in other years, I would 100% agree with you. And they are actually earlier this year than normal. Normally, I believe if we look past this, probably we get them in December. So, Christmas tree sales are pretty innocuous, but I agree they do need to be held to a standard. So I will work with the city clerk to make sure that next year that at least folks who have applied for these licenses this year understand that they need to apply for them earlier next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, hold on one second. Counselor O'Malley, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also in support of Councilor Murphy's motion. Yeah, I think one of the most surprising things when I joined the council was that we actually license tree sales, Christmas tree sales. I think it's crazy. I would be in support of just completely abolishing the license and letting anyone who wants to sell Christmas trees sell Christmas trees. I don't really know why it has to come before the city council. So I'm fully in support in passing it tonight. Hopefully it's not an expensive license, because that's the last thing I'd want people to be spending their money on right now during COVID. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Counselor Murphy, we need to suspend council rules. Do you make a motion to suspend?
I will make a motion to suspend council rules to pass this petition.
Second.
And seconded by Counselor Crowe. So on Counselor Murphy's motion to suspend council rules for the purpose of granting this license, seconded by Counselor Crowe, the clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Yes.
Kamel,
Yes.
Condon,
Condon, yes.
Crowe,
Yes.
DeMaria,
DeMaria, yes.
Linehan,
Linehan, yes.
Murphy,
Murphy, yes.
O'Malley,
Yes.
Spatafora,
Spatafora, yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Sika.
Yes.
Rules are suspended 11-0.
Great. On Counselor Murphy's motion to grant this petition, somebody did second it before we started talking. Was it Counselor Anderson?
Yes, I'll second it.
No.
The clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Yes.
Kamel,
Well, yes.
Condon,
Yes.
Crowe,
Yes.
DeMaria,
DeMaria, yes.
Linehan,
Linehan, yes.
Murphy,
Murphy, yes.
O'Malley,
O'Malley, yes.
Spatafora,
Spatafora, yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Sika.
Sika, yes.
Petitions granted 11-0.
Next order of business.
Paper 369-20, order that the sum of $3 million is appropriated from available general fund free cash to pay costs of street paving, including the payment of all costs incidental and relating thereof. And I do have a letter from the mayor on this as well.
Okay. Do you want to read the letter?
Yeah, we could. Dear members of the city council, over the past several years, we have continued to focus on replacing water mains and doing associated street work. As you know, this work is critical. It is also very expensive and disruptive. While we will continue with this effort on a parallel path, I believe we have put ourselves in a position where we can now also address the many streets we have that are in need of a less comprehensive mill and overlay. In the past years, the city has largely funded road work through bonding. I have been working hard over the past several years, along with our finance team, to put ourselves in a position where we can fund this work in a more balanced way. Specifically, it's been our goal to reduce reliance on reserves for our annual budget so that these funds can be redirected to other priorities. With the current year's budget, which was created in balance without reliance on reserves, we have put ourselves in just that position. The Department of Revenue has recently certified our free cash at a level of $18.6 million. These funds, of course, play an important role in providing the city with a backstop when financial conditions deteriorate, either locally or at the state level. Many refer this to as a rainy day fund. However, we also believe that hard work we've done provides us some breathing room to allocate some of these funds to road work. As I'm sure you'll agree, it's one of the most frequent requests we get from residents. Therefore, I'm proposing that we authorize a bond of $3 million and match that bond with the use of $3 million in reserves. This balanced approach, I believe, appropriately shares the cost between current taxpayers and future taxpayers and sets a standard that will help us manage our debt levels more effectively going forward. I've instructed our engineering staff to begin compiling a list of streets based upon engineering standards and the desired scope of the program. I will then work with each of you to gain feedback of the same. I'm not intended to include a list of streets with the bonding request for several reasons. In the past, this has led us to put together inefficient packages. I believe the most effectual way to maximize the number of roads that are paved is to allow our engineering staff to put together a plan that helps us get to best pricing possible. Additionally, our focus here is on those streets that involve a mill and overlay only and again. I believe it's best to allow our team to package all that information together, after which time I'll work with each of you to gain your feedback. I respectfully ask that you authorize this appropriation so that we can begin the much needed work in the spring, summer of 2021. I believe doing so will allow us to have an immediate impact on a large number of streets with minimal resident disruption. Thank you for your consideration, and please contact me with any questions. Sincerely, Gary Christensen, Mayor of Malden.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel for the paper.
Yeah, I believe the mayor's letter says most of what there is to say. I would refer this and the following paper 370, which is both of these are different pieces of the funding. One is reserves, one is bonding, to Finance Committee, where we would have I'm sure vigorous conversation about it.
Second. Okay, on Councilor Kamel's motion to refer this paper to Finance, seconded by Councilor Di Maria, the clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Anderson, yes.
Kamel,
Mel, yes.
Condon,
Condon, yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Di Maria,
Di Maria, yes.
Linehan,
Linehan, yes.
Murphy,
Murphy, yes.
O'Malley,
O'Malley, yes.
Betafora,
Got a 4 yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Sika.
Sika, yes.
Paper is referred to Finance 11-0.
Next order of business.
So this paper 370-20, order that the sum of $3 million be appropriated to pay costs of street repaving, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto. And that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under the pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7(1) of the general laws or pursuant to any other enabling authority to issue bonds or notes to the city thereof. Any premium received by the city upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this order or pursuant to any other loan orders approved by the city prior to the date thereof, lest any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote, or pursuant to any other loan orders approved by the city prior to the date hereof, as the case may be, in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Councilor Kamel for the paper.
Yeah, again, this is the bonding portion, 369 that we just referred to finance was the general fund free cash. This is the bonding portion. So refer to finance.
Second.
Councilor Kamel's motion to refer this paper to finance, seconded by Councilor Di Maria. The clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Anderson, yes.
Camel,
Kamel, yes.
Condon,
Condon, yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Di Maria,
yes.
Linehan,
Linehan, yes.
Murphy,
Murphy, yes.
O'Malley,
Yes, yes, yes.
Spatafora,
Spatafora, yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Sika.
Sika, yes.
Paper is referred to finance 11-0.
Next order of business.
Paper 371-20, order that the fiscal year 2021 adopted general fund appropriation order, Schedule B, be hereby amended by reducing the appropriation by $4,164,407 in the corresponding fiscal year 2021 budget. Contingency expenses be eliminated.
Councilor Kamel for the paper.
As most of us will remember during the discussions about the fiscal year 2021 budget, as opposed to referring to these things as a cut because we still had uncertainty about the state aid portion of our budget, we had put these, earmarked these as a budget contingency, which was basically the best guess at the time of the administration on what would be cuts if their projected funding was correct. Turns out that it was pretty spot on. And what this would do is now formally make that budget contingency actual cuts. I would refer this to finance, and I would imagine that we would have a pretty good discussion about it. Yeah, refer to finance. Motion.
Second.
Councilor Kamel's motion to refer this paper to finance, seconded by Councilor Di Maria. The clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Anderson, yes.
Kamel,
Kamel, yes.
Condon,
Condon, yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Di Maria,
yes.
Linehan,
Linehan, yes.
Murphy,
Murphy, yes.
O'Malley,
O'Malley, yes.
Spatafora,
Spatafora, yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Sika.
Sika, yes.
Papers referred to finance 11-0.
Next order of business.
Paper 373-20, order be it hereby ordained that section 2.20.060 of the revised ordinances of 2020 be amended by adding primary operator of the public water system to the unclassified employee salary schedule with a salary of $20,000.
Councilor Kamel for the paper.
Yeah, so a system such as Malden's requires a certain license for, requires a primary operator who has a specific license to operate our system. The market for that type of expertise and licenses is quite competitive. So this has come down as a mechanism to try to compete within that. This would be $20,000 on top of the designated employee that we already have would have this. I would make a motion to refer this to finance for more discussion.
Second.
Second.
Councilor Kamel's motion to refer this matter, seconded by Councilor Condon. Clerk will call the roll.
Can I just jump in? Is this Council Kamel? This is this is for the water, right?
Yes.
It's got to be joint ordinance and finance. We got to change the ordinance or create an ordinance too.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So there's two, hold on, I apologize. These are.
I just
two-
want to make sure, I know there's two, I just want to make sure we're right though, because there's,
This one and the next one that needs to go to a joint finance and ordinance.
Right, I wish these were just. I
and
know.
then we would vote them out separate as the finance committee and the ordinance committee. I think Council O'Malley made that point last time, and then we would
Yeah.
vote separately, just to make sure it's clear and concise. But in order to pay the individual, you have to have an ordinance that allows us to pay.
No.
So,
Motion to amend my motion, previous motion to, so the amendment is, amend the motion to send to a joint finance and ordinance committee.
Okay. Seconded by Councilor Condon. The clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Anderson, yes.
Kamel,
Come on, yes.
Condon,
Condon, yes.
Crow,
Yes.
DeMaria,
DeMaria, yes.
Linehan,
Linehan, yes.
Murphy,
Murphy, yes.
O'Malley,
Yes.
Spatafora,
Spatafora, yes.
Winslow. Winslow,
Uh-oh.
Winslow, yes.
oh, good. Sika,
Sika, yes.
Council President,
Yes.
I believe just because of the way I phrased that, I think that was a motion to amend the motion.
Well, we didn't vote on the first one, so
We just didn't vote on it. Okay.
Yeah.
we didn't vote on, we didn't.
All right, so it's been probably referred.
So it was just sent to finance and ordinance. I thought you were being
Never
funny,
mind.
when you said amended.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was, we didn't vote to send it there before Craig chimed in, so it was just referred to finance and ordinance, no amended. Okay,
Perfect. Thank you. My apologies.
no worries. Next order of business.
paper 374-20, order be it hereby ordained that section 2.12.100 of the revised ordinances of 2020 be amended by adding section C to include a primary operator of the public water system.
Councilor Kamel for the paper.
So if I may, sorry to put him on the spot, I would defer to Council Spatafora.
Okay, oh, sorry, yes, that's going, yeah. Councilor,
I mean, Council Kamel can answer it. No, it.
It's
No,
all-
I
it's
think, I
like
think,
what
it, we,
you want.
I think for the record, this was something that was discussed earlier. This is just the ordinance to match that $20,000. And like for the general public has to understand, anytime we want to pay an employee, there is an ordinance to match that. And this would allow us to add this or amend or create in the ordinance paper in order to allow that salary to be given. So refer to ordinance. So
Yeah.
refer to ordinance and joint finance, because we're going to do it at the same time.
Yep.
Council Kamel. We'll have one big meeting and vote separately. Yep.
and Councilor Spatafora's motion, seconded by Councilor Kamel, to refer this paper to joint finance and ordinance. The clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Anderson, yes.
Kamel,
Kamel, yes.
Condon,
Condon, yes.
Crow,
Yes.
DeMaria,
DeMaria, yes.
Linehan,
Linehan, yes.
Murphy,
Murphy, yes.
O'Malley,
Yes.
Spatafora,
Spatafora, yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Sika.
Sika, yes.
Paper is referred to joint ordinance and finance meeting 11-0. Paper 375-20, order that the sum of $40,000 being here in the same is hereby transferred from available general funds from free cash to the mayor's office salary account in order to hire a diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator for the remainder of the fiscal year. And I do have a letter from the mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
Dear Councilor Kamel, as you know, over the summer, I announced the Unite Malden 2020 campaign, which represented a series of initiatives meant to strengthen and unite us as a community. One critical part of that initiative is the establishment of a city-first diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator. We have spent the past several months researching how this has been approached by other cities, what has worked, and in general, how best to approach this need for here in Malden. We have also interviewed other communities and have drafted a job description that reflects in a comprehensive way the responsibilities of this role. I am proposing that this position be established and as a member of the mayor's office staff. This will allow us to move forward promptly and allow me to work closely with the chosen candidate and establish the new role in the way we envision it. We have seen many different approaches from the various cities we have spoken with, and it's possible that in the future, we may decide that there are synergies with a different city department and revisit where the position sits in the organization. I respectfully ask your support in approving the financial paper that will allow us to begin the advertising process for this important position. There are many communities around us taking similar steps, so it's likely the best candidates will be in high demand early. Therefore, I would appreciate any steps may be taken to expedite the necessary transfer.
Counselor Kamel.
Yep. Again, I thank the mayor for his letter. I think that gives the detail necessary. This is, again, part of his Unite Malden 2020 plan, and I make a motion to refer to finance for further discussion.
Second.
Hold on 1 second. I have a couple of hands up. Counselor Murphy? You're on mute, Counselor Murphy. I can't hear you. You're on.
I'm trying to unmute there. Yes, and I definitely agree with this paper. I mean, one of the things that I would like to, Finance Chair Kamel, when we discuss it in finance, I mean, because of civil service, there's very few positions in the city of Malden that actually we have control over. And I think the biggest portion of the employees of the city reside in the school committee, or reside in the school systems. So, you know, I'd like to make sure that when this gets referred to finance, that we actually hear how this particular position is going to impact schools. Because if it doesn't, because we don't have a lot of crossover in our department heads or in the positions we hire and how they impact the schools. Because the superintendent normally has most hiring authority. So I'd like to, you know, kind of have a really in-depth, deep discussion about this particular position and how it interacts with our school personnel. So just, I'm not for or against it, definitely want to refer it, but just want to make sure that that becomes part of the discussion that we have. Thank you.
Counselor Anderson, you're next.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I'm strongly in support of this paper going forward and that it gets passed. I have concerns about the salary level, which I think we can have more discussion about. I know that what is being asked for is a salary for the remainder of this fiscal year, which will annualize at a I think about a $65,000 a year salary. We need to look at what's been going on in the other cities, other surrounding cities that have diversity positions like this, and make sure that we're not underpaying this person. I'd point out to the council that we need to, if we're to be true to this, we need to make sure that this position has the kind of support from the council that we talk about here on the council. That is to say that we need to be pressing our department heads and our HR director and all the hiring managers to be working with this diversity person to make sure that we're doing more than just reaching out and getting applicants into the pool, but that we're finding the applicants, the diverse applicants that can be hired to change the makeup of our city. I think, you know, let's all be clear. We are underrepresented in the presence of persons of color in our workforce, not only in the school system, but throughout most of the departments of the city, all of the departments of the city, I would say. There are some departments that are doing much better than others, but we all have a long way to go. And given what we've all seen happening, you know, throughout this country with the murdering of Black and brown people in this country, and the recognition that I think the world is being able to see that we need to we need to recognize that there is institutional racism everywhere. We've got to work to overcome that. And I think having this diversity person on board is a step in the right direction. This is not the answer to it all, but this is a step in the right direction. And counselors, I implore us all to do what we can to support the efforts of this diversity person once they come on board. So yes, I wholeheartedly support us moving forward with this and to continue to work on it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Linehan, you're next.
Thank you, Madam President. I also support this and share Councilor Anderson's concerns about the salary. I would like for us to dig into that. I'm also a little concerned that it seems to have dropped from a director level position when it was first proposed to a coordinator level, which is a much lower position that I'm afraid doesn't align with the duties. I also sort of fear that the duties are so laden down with, somewhat administrative tasks, things that could really position this person to start off with a lot on their plate and not be able to move forward with some of the strategic things that we really need to move on fast. So I look forward to having a good discussion on it in committee, but I do want to make sure that we're right sizing that salary and the job description, particularly for a role that's likely to be very competitive and to be recruiting a person of color to work in our city at a time like this. We need to be competitive against what other cities are advertising it for and realistic to what this person is going to be asked to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. I think that one of the feedbacks that I have received about this particular role is that it almost looks like it's being set up to fail. It looks like it's 2 or 3 jobs combined into one that really has no chance of success. And I agree with some of the statements that were stated earlier. I think that the time for lip service is over, and the time for actual action is now. It's actually probably 10 years ago. And so the same way, we need to make sure that we're attracting more, people of color in our staff and department heads. We can't lose track of the fact that, women are also underrepresented in our department heads. Members of the LGBTQ community are underrepresented. So I think that we should all really take a hard look at ourselves and think that if we are really carrying the weight that we need to carry as individual counselors, or are we just, contributing to the lip service? So I appreciate that we're moving this forward. It's long overdue. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor DiMaria.
Thank you, Madam President. And I hate to be redundant, but I did have to chime in a little. The DEI position, at first blush, I was beyond excited to receive the email and to know this is really we're moving forward. There's a mission in the city, and I'm so excited about it. I do have a couple of concerns as to, where this person is housed. How is this person, what are the duties of this person? Is the salary adequate for what we're expecting this person to do and to help our community to embrace what the mission is of this position? I'm very excited that we are finally putting pen to paper and moving forward with a starting point. But I do think there's a lot more dialogue in committee, which we will, I look forward to discussing. And I thank the administration for the work that they've put forth to get this started. So I yield. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yes, I'm very supportive of this position. I think it's been long needed in Malden, to really diversify. I appreciate the work Councilor Anderson and I've, done as we've interviewed department heads, and some have done more. And I mean, I think ultimately, it's about recruiting. It's about making sure people have interviews and then hiring people, diversity. But it's also about retaining and promoting people. So it is a broad thing. I think we can talk more about kind of the level of position. Having spent, I've had multiple jobs in my career, being the new person in a totally new position in a totally new area. And I think that it takes a while for an organization to adapt. And so I think I want to get going on it. And I think a coordinator position might be the way to start out, with the expectation that we would work to promote it over several years. But there is a sort of a time that someone has to come in, get to see the organization, create a presence for the position, and then move it up. So I think we can have more discussion. But I think this is a good start, and it's something that's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Spatafor?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to go on the record too. I support this, long overdue. I don't know if you can put a timetable on it, when we should have done it, but certainly something you want to do. And I know, unfortunately, it's taken, not just one event this year, unfortunately, a series of events that have made this topic of mine throughout the world, and certainly in the United States. And there's this, I don't want to use the word renewed emphasis, because it's not really renewed, but on inclusion. And I think where Councilor Winslow was going, I see it even at the corporate level. We've always had these type of inclusionary discussions, and it's always been people having these unpleasant discussions, with each other. And maybe this year is a little different because it's pronounced, and maybe because it's virtual, people are a little bit easy to speak. But there's a lot more work being done at the ground level, which I think Councilor Lynn was supposed to say, and just coming in and understanding what our key objectives are, and then building on them and looking, Councilor Murphy makes a great point, looking citywide, all departments. I'm 100% supportive of it. It's going to be a long process and a journey, and it might take more than one individual. You never know. I mean, that's the point, but I'm happy to support this. I appreciate the mayor's effort, and I look forward to further discussions on this. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Crowe?
Thank you, Madam President. I won't belabor the point, and 100% in favor of this paper, and I do believe there'll be a rich discussion in committee. And I think just even the letter that was sent to accompany this paper said that they had kind of done some of their research, and with other communities doing it. And while I absolutely do agree with Councilor Winslow, it will grow. I think putting it in with the mayor's office, the highest level, makes the right choice. But I do think in committee we can have those conversations of what research was done, what are some of the other alternatives that communities do, and what's the best choice for Malden, where the price point is, and what those duties are. So to allow someone not to feel overwhelmed, but to give them some concrete steps they can move forward and actually move our community forward. So I applaud the effort, and I'm 100% in favor of moving this forward as soon as possible.
Great, thank you. Councilor Condon?
Thank you, Madam President.
Councilor Condon, you're breaking.
Many years. Oh,
Having a problem hearing him?
can you hear me?
I can hear you right there.
You turn off your video.
You look like you're frozen. Can you hear us? You are muted now. Unmute yourself.
You hear me now?
We can, yep.
Okay. Does that make you happy or unhappy?
No, makes me happy.
No, I'd like to compliment Councilor Anderson, who's pushed many years for this position. Also, I think the mayor is approaching this in the right way, attaching this person to the mayor's office to, first of all, I think it's very, very important that the school department be included in this. This is one position that should absolutely work together with these schools in the city, because you have to understand something. A big part of the rest of the city is civil service, particularly police and fire, who go by civil service rules. So now you've got left the city hall, DPW, and a few other departments. So I think it's important that the school is included under this individual to make sure that the makeup is reflective of our residents in the community. And I think the mayor will be able to evaluate this much better, having this person work up in his office and come up with the final job description. And in the same vein, make sure the person is paid equitably compared to other people. I don't know if this person will have a staff or not, or it's just going to be one person in the department, but it's certainly going to be an important position going forward, and I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Condon. Okay. No other hands are up. Councilor Kamel, did you already make a motion to refer this to finance?
I did.
Oh, okay. Councilor Spatafora's motion, seconded by Councilor Di Maria. The clerk will call the roll.
Anderson. We'll go back to him.
Anderson,
Kamel.
yes.
Okay, Kamel.
Kamel, yes.
Condon.
Condon, yes.
Crow.
Yes.
Di Maria.
Di Maria, yes.
Linehan.
Linehan, yes.
Murphy.
Murphy, yes.
O'Malley.
O'Malley, yes.
Spatafora. Spatafora.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was on me.
Sorry.
Got a 4 yes. Sorry.
Winslow.
Winslow, yes.
Sika.
Sika, yes.
Papers goes to finance 11-0.
Next order of business.
Paper 372-20, resolved that the City of Malden Cannabis License Commission pause on soliciting additional applications for retail marijuana licenses so that the city can solicit voter feedback in the next municipal election on limits to the number of establishments allowed in the City of Malden.
Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to just recap on my thought process here. And, you know, before the record, I've been accused of a lot of things. I want to let everybody watching this, institute my counselors. I was the ordinance chair when the marijuana passed. I supported it 100%. And then 2 legal cannabis locations were before us, and I supported both of them. So I'm not anti-cannabis. In fact, it's probably the opposite. I'm trying to make the process a little bit more efficient. And if you notice the resolve, and I know a couple of you asked me, and I appreciate that, the resolve does not mention anything to do with medicinal, cultivation, or manufacturing, right? It is the retail. And here's the rationale and the reason why. It was also mentioned, before I get into that why wasn't this done this year, presidential election? I think the council president has made it very clear. State law says it has to be a local election. So that brings us back to 2017. And I don't mean, I'm not doing this in a negative way. We actually voted in September of 2017. And when several councils on here, to actually pause on marijuana so the voters could stay have a stay in the number of local establishments. I'm not going to say who voted for it because I don't want to make it seem like I'm going to try to sway votes, but many of us here voted for it to do that. So it's not a new concept, and I'm not trying to inhibit any growth of business. I support the 2. Those 2 will go forward. I know we mentioned in Melrose. Melrose has 1. Malden will have 2. I thought this was a good time before there's none before us to take into some change. If we don't want to put the resolve, which was eloquently said is only resolve, the chairman of the Cannabis Committee did reach out to me and asked to have some ordinance updates to make the process more efficient. So if this doesn't pass for whatever reason, it will go to ordinance. And my hope was not to have any other businesses or candidates come before us and only kind of make that process even more entangled than it already is. Just to remind everybody, there were 8 applicants in total that came before the Cannabis Committee. 4 of them were going to be presented to this council for votes. So 4 out of the 8. 2 of them dropped out, not because the council didn't vote on them, not because the council said anything bad, but because one was a business decision. I think the partnership broke up. And the other one, I don't know the rationale, but never came before us. So the two that came before us, this council, this body voted to support 100%. So that's 100% ratio. So I'm not trying to I'm not trying to get marijuana off the docket. It is passed, absolutely. The other process I put in place here is the reason why I started thinking about this is a lot of voters didn't realize there was a number. They didn't. Now, whether you want to call them uneducated voters, that's fine. The public can say that, but they didn't understand there was a number tied to it. It is tied to the number of liquor licenses, and that's done by the state in the population. So if the population increases and the state gives us more license, we have to increase the number of cannabis licenses. So a lot of cities and towns want to take control of that process just because they want the local option. And the way you do that is simply put in the ballot and say the number's 5. And you can change it as much time as you want when you're going by the ballot. But this way we have a say in that process rather than letting the state really dictate what we can do. And the way the state law is written, I am not an attorney and pretending to play one, but if you read online, we can't say no. We almost have to issue, let's say if there's 6 licenses, you almost have to do it. Now, there is a timely manner. That's absolutely right. You don't have to rush to do it. But unlike the liquor licenses, they don't have to. The liquor body has more control than the Cannabis Commission does simply because of the way the state rules work. There was a package store license that sat dormant for 15 years. Why? Because all the locations that came before them, they denied. Right or wrong, they had that ability. In fact, it was actually appealed several times, and the state liquor license said, nope, local option, you can't do it. So this is 2-part. One was to put a number on that, not just tied to the ratio of liquor stores. I don't agree with that, but just coming up with some numbers, and this is retail, not manufacturing or medicinal or cannabis. And the other way was just there is no applications before us. And what I feel were the 2 easy ones to vote on, to be quite honest with you, because of the location. And I know a member of the public said it doesn't matter where they go, we should allow them. Unfortunately, that's not how business operates, whether you're Dunkin' Donuts or a marijuana shop. We do have to look at zoning laws, and we have to understand also what the residents say. Now, I know there was one in Councilor Sika's ward that I went to that meeting, and 50 residents didn't want it there. So if they were to come back and waste their time and money again, I would be honest with you and tell you right now, I would not support it based on that neighborhood. And I think it's going to be harder and harder based on those locations to maybe appoint them. And so that's why I asked for a pause. We don't have to do the pause. The chairman of the Cannabis Committee is going to put some ordinances. I will work with him effective tomorrow to do those ordinances. But this is not to stymie business. It is certainly not going to trying to stop marijuana. It is passed. I have nothing against it. I voted on 2 of them. I supported the ordinance. But it just gives us the ability to have some local option. You know, when we had the one on Commercial Street, I received an abundance and a massive amount of emails, right, on that, and some of us voted for us and some of us didn't. But a lot of the questions were they didn't realize there was going to be a number. You know, the other fact that I want to bring in here, it does allow in the state rules to have this local option. It's under Chapter 94, Section G. And that's why the state put it in there to allow the cities and towns to have that ability to do that. So I think it's been the member of the Cannabis Commission, Mrs. DeVitt, said it was great. It absolutely was a fair and transparent process. We had 8 applicants. It got down to 4. 2 caved or dropped out, and we came down to 2 when we voted them in. So we didn't stymie them. What I think we're asking you to improve that process, but not waste anybody's time going forward over the next year. I only found out the other day through an email, probably just like everybody else, there was another applicant on a local level, which I don't know when the next meeting is. I don't know the location, but I wasn't trying to stop that applicant, simply pausing when I didn't think there was any more applicants to say, we voted on 2, which, by the way, will probably not be open for 6 to 9 months based on them going to the state and getting approved and getting the local option signed off by the mayor. So even 6 to 9 months, we're not going to see any opened. That's just the process. That's not us slowing it down. And then even if we were to approve, let's say 2 more came before us in February, March, they wouldn't be opened till probably the end of the year. So my resolve was twofold. One is take this time, work with the Cannabis Commission to work on those ordinances and get a better process in place. And then if we wanted to put it on the ballot, and the process is this body just has to do a simple majority and it goes on the ballot the next election, and it's based on the simple majority of the votes. And that number could be 5, right? So we're not going to lower it, but that number is 5. So that way, if there is this influx of liquor licenses or population, we are at 5, and then we can always decide to change it later on. There's an interesting article, which I forget the city and town, it's the western part of the state. The reason why they started looking at the local option last year, I don't know if anybody remembers, Cumberland Farms started an initiative to get all the convenience stores, and I'm not saying good or bad. They had an initiative to get all the local convenience stores the ability to get full liquor licenses and or beer and wine. So if that passed at the State House, every convenience store would have the ability to do that. By default, even if they were approved, we would have to grant additional marijuana licenses. Now, there's a timetable, yes, but there's nothing saying we can't say no as a municipality. So it's a little bit of a checks and balances. And again, I am not against it. The people spoke for it, but the same token is I think we should give the local option. That is democracy. We put it on the ballot. We hear from them. But again, if this resolve is not to pass, I will reach out tomorrow to the Cannabis Commission, ask for those local ordinances, and take them up. Once we get past some of the other things on the agenda. That's all I have. Happy to have any questions or comments. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Spatafor. Councilor Crowe.
Thank you, Madam President. And I think, part of the resolve that says we're gonna put it on the ballot, I think in some way that can wait because we're not in a rush to do that right now. I do think at a minimum, we really do need to at least reevaluate, how we are moving these forward, because although we did have 2 and both of them did pass, but the minimum threshold was 8 votes and one only got the 8 votes. So, and I totally understand that. And I was arguing for them because, again, my argument was we told them where they could go, what they need to do, how they needed to do it. They followed everything to a T. They were a very strong candidate, and it still barely passed. So, for the other ones that feel like they were in the queue, they could be paying for a piece of property for a long time, putting a lot of money into developing their plan, and then still get the no, like Commercial Street almost didn't. So I do think we need to at least, look at the ordinance, see if that's what we really want. So if we tell people to spend a lot of money, get architects, get a team together, get a lot of capital together, do all of this, and then we still say you did everything we asked you to do, but no. So I do think that we need to look at that. So in part, I am in favor of the ordinance. Of the resolve, to really look at that, to make sure that people that do go through this process know that they've done all the right things, and they really should be if they get to the point that they're here in front of the council. The part about putting it on the ballot, I think we have time to do that. Yep. We passed an election. So we can, if we can't make the adjustments with ordinances or zoning, then maybe we do put it on the ballot. So those are my 2 cents.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel, you're next.
Thank you. So just a point of clarification. So this resolve is not either necessary or required for a ballot question, right? This isn't, that would be a completely separate mechanism and vote, right?
It would just be a vote by the council, Council Kamel, correct.
Right. And then, so what this actually accomplishes is what? Just asks the CLEC to slow themselves down?
Well, I think a couple things, Council. I think it sends a message to, now, again, it sends a message to the candidates that might be out there that we are making changes. And I say this, I'm not going to speak for the local councilors. My understanding is that there are some applicants that applied in the past that were denied, they never got to the final round. Councilor Sika probably can give you more, but if they come back, I will probably assure you, based on that neighborhood feedback, I don't think the local council will support it, and maybe the entire council. So we've just wasted their time again on this process, and we're sending a message to the Cannabis Committee, which they have some changes to make it a little bit better in terms of the process for us. Again, it's a new industry. It's the first time we passed an ordinance. I think they've done a great job, but there's always time to fix things.
Okay, so I've got another question. So I don't understand why we don't move forward with, all right, 2 questions, I guess. Are there any applicants right now in the pipeline? That's number 1. And number 2, if we start with the ordinance changes we actually have to make, I don't know why we don't just get started on those. would those still apply as long as we started getting those ordinance changes in the works? Would anybody who applied, say, tomorrow be, for lack of a better term, grandfathered in?
Well, Council Camillo, the first thing is I don't want to say the pipeline because I don't want to speak. I think Council Crowe and Council Seeker did shake their head. But as far as I don't know what the changes are. The only conversation I had with the chairman, Mr. Hogan, was he wanted to know how busy we were with the ordinance. And given we had a bunch of stuff in there and the election came up and it was tough for even the clerk to get some off days, I said after the election, we should be able to loosen this up and do it. So I don't know what those changes would impact, to be quite honest with you. I haven't seen them. But as far as anybody in the pipeline, I will look to Council Crowe and Council Seeker. I don't think there's anybody in the pipeline that I know of right now, as far as I know. Council Seeker?
And Councilor Kamel. Nobody has been denied marijuana moving forward in this. So there's actually 4 other applications that are kind of just sitting on ice, if you will, at this point. So they moved 4 forward, but nobody's been actually told they've been denied to move on. So those applicants weren't as strong as the 4 that went through. And so there's 5 licenses that we're granting in the city of Malden. And I don't know if anybody remembers, but one of them was supposed to be saved for a social economic empowerment group.
Yep.
Who would now wait 2 years.
None of the 8 that applied had the social economic empowerment. You have to actually get that status through the state. You just can't come before us and say, I feel that I am social economic empowerment material. You actually have to go through the state in order for them to say that you are social economic empowerment. So we only have 2 more licenses that we can fulfill. And I don't know if everybody remembers, but once the new census comes in, that number is going to increase. Package stores are going to increase, which means the marijuana licenses are going to increase. And how many of these do we want?
Okay, so I just, if you may,
No, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Let me just finish my bit here and I'll move on and say that. So I'm just saying right now I'm leaning against it. I'm still open to listen to more here, but I'm leaning towards a no. Might be moot. Looks like there's plenty of sponsors already, but we'll see. So just wanted to.
Great. Thank you. Councilor O'Malley, you're next.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't want to belabor the topic, but I do think that Councilor Kamel and even Councilor Spatafora, when he was referencing it, are correct when they say, I think the correct process here is to send this to ordinance and talk about any ordinance changes that we would like to see. I'm just a little concerned that the resolve, is in contradiction with our ordinances and state law, and I would be concerned that any businesses that have incurred costs preparing, applications based on what we've published as our ordinances and based on the documents that CLEC has published and based on state law, that they could have like a legitimate case for damages against the city if we don't, if we're saying pause, but, not a real pause, but just a de facto pause. So I'm hoping that we can talk with CLEC. I think it would be a top priority if we think that there's some feedback. And from what I've heard, CLEC does have some feedback for what changes we can make to the ordinance. There was some talk about, the fact that one of the applicants only passed by the bare number of votes it needed, which is 8. That's a big number, I think. 8 of 12 is 8 of 11 is a significant number of votes. I think I was pretty clear during the meeting. The only reason I voted against that one is because I just didn't think it was a good location in terms of traffic. I think that we still don't really have a particular business that is, near public transit. We don't really have a business that is hitting the social, economic, empowerment, diversity thing that we're going for, because that's the whole point of the law. And so I'm thinking it's premature to pass something like this, and I think it's just a little bit contradictory to our ordinance and state law. So I'd hope to see this process, follow ordinance, rolling basis. Let's see what comes in. Ones that are not good, we should be voting them down the same way we would with any special permit. And the ones that are really great applicants, really good location, those are the ones that we should keep an open mind about. I do appreciate that this is a conversation that we can talk about. Hopefully we can have it in ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Winslow, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. We had a very long deliberation over a couple years on this ordinance, and it took, Councilor O'Malley was chair for a while, then Councilor Spatafor took over when he took on. We had much community input. We really came up with a good process. Yeah, sure, we can do tweaks, but when the city has to do changes to the ordinances, people have the right to apply under the existing ordinance until we go through the process of changing it. So that's just one of the things. We have people who may not have applied, but have been investing in planning to apply after this first round. I think it's just unfair to businesses that have been making investments. And these are local business people, local residents who have been waiting. And because of COVID, they've been gracious and held off. So I think it's really unfair. I'm not opposed to ultimately putting this on the ballot, but I think that that at the very least, we should give people like last call kind of thing of saying, yes, we're going to, this is going onto the ballot. Let's, if you want to do something, get your application in now under the current ordinance, and then, we'll look at it. I don't know whether, I'm happy that the council's gone ahead and approved 2 permits, but remember, we haven't had a ribbon cutting yet. So there's a possibility that these 2 applicants could have challenges or delays, or maybe not necessarily get through the whole process. So, and they haven't signed a community host agreement. So in a way, we're giving away some leverage we might have over those existing people. So I just think it's just premature and it's unfair. So I just can't support it. I do believe that if enough people want to petition to get this on the ballot next year, I will be supportive of that. But we have, a very well deliberated ordinance. We should allow that to go forward. If we want to make changes, well, but that shouldn't stop people from applying and going under the existing ordinance. We've had 8 applications. We've had a process. It's been slow and deliberate. That's what we wanted. So it's worked. Yeah, we can tweak it, but we had something work. We got 2 applicants through the process. So it's not a failure. It's not perfect, but it's working enough. So I can't support this in the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Winslow. Councilor DiMaria.
Thank you, Madam President. And I totally agree with Councilor Winslow. Spot on. We approved 2 of these new business types during COVID. And I think the committee for over 2 years, the CLEC, has just been unbelievably efficient. They've worked so hard to zone it, to set out the applications, to follow mass law. At first blush, I will say, I said, yeah, maybe we should pump the brakes a little. We got 2 in the pipeline, let's pump the brakes. But the more I thought of it, I said, I just think that's a disservice to all the people that have worked so hard to get us at this point right now. So I initially agreed to sponsor this. Then within an hour, I changed my mind. And unfortunately, my name did go on as a sponsor. So I will respectfully ask the clerk to make sure that the minutes and that is adjusted. Clerk, I hope, are you there? Where are you?
I'm right here.
Thank you.
And I will vouch for your email, Councilor DiMaria. You did request to delete your name. The email just wasn't seen.
that's fine. I totally understand. It was the busiest week. So I just have to say, I think that this resolve just isn't what we need right now. I would opt, if a new paper comes to the floor in 2 weeks as an order, I would definitely support that to go to ordinance and to chew it up a little bit more, but I am not in favor of this resolve this evening. Thank you for my time.
Thank you, Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President. My particular ward, half of my ward didn't vote for this question 4, I think it was. But a lot of the people I talk with, they voted for it to decriminalize the marijuana, thinking that some kid gets caught with a small amount of marijuana and they didn't want to see him destroy their life. They had no idea that they were going to get retail marijuana shops in their neighborhood, particularly 5 of them. I don't know where we go from here unless it's going to be a Ward 2, Ward 8 show, because that's where most of the industrial zoning seems to be. Unless we open it up to other zoning areas, which would be an absolute nightmare if we go to highway business, neighborhood business, then we really get into the neighborhoods. And then I think that's when we really find out how the people feel, because it'll be the same old story. Not in my neighborhood. They don't want it in their neighborhood around their children and grandchildren. And I don't think it'll hurt to put it on the ballot and get some feedback on exactly how they feel about the retail marijuana stores possibly going in a second, like a place like Maplewood Square or Highland Avenue, because that's where they could pop up if you go into the neighborhood business areas. Even the highway business areas, it's all abutted by neighborhoods. And that's when you get the pushback and people realize that it can't affect them. So I don't think it will hurt to take a pause. Let's find out how people feel about these shops, retail shops, 5 of them going in the city of Malden, because they have to be dispersed in the different areas of the city. So I will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Condon. On behalf of the chair, I just want to say that I put my name on this resolve, not because I'm anti-marijuana. I've been pro-marijuana this just about the whole time. The vote that Councilor Spatafora mentioned that the council took back in 2017, I remember clearly myself and Councilor O'Malley were ones that voted not to limit the amount of marijuana dispensaries in the city. I didn't think it was necessary. And I don't technically think it's necessary at this point, but after sitting through 2 special permit processes, and one of them almost failed because we only just got over the margin of the 8 votes, when that applicant had every I and every I dotted and every T crossed, including the zoning that the Malden City Council created. We are the body that created the zoning for these particular locations, not the CLEC, not anybody else. We are the ones that did the zoning for this particular establishment. And I heard from a few that evening how the location wasn't good enough, and worrying about lines going in. We didn't worry about any of that when we made Commercial Street part of the zoning. I think I wanted the pause to kind of review everything. Maybe it shouldn't have been in the way of a resolve, like Councilor Spatafora had mentioned. Maybe it should be a paper on the next docket for us to refer an issue to the ordinance committee so we could have some open and honest dialogue about how we move this process forward. I attended just about every interview with the 8 applicants because 5 of them were in Ward 8. The other 2 were in Ward 2. And I wanted to understand the process and know how the process goes. It is a long process for the clerk, for the applicant. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars these people are putting into this application process for designs. The list goes on as to what they've put in for this application process. If we're gonna keep accepting applications on a rolling monthly basis and the clerk is going to approve 1, 2, whatever, and then it comes in front of the special permit process, which is us, and we have all these questions about location when we're the one that picked the location or other issues. I think that we need to fix some things in this. I am absolutely not anti-marijuana. I never have been. I never will be. I do not smoke, but I feel if people want to, then they should be able to. It's their right. And, you know, being a parent of an 18 and a 21-year-old child, if my children choose to smoke marijuana, I would prefer them to go to an establishment where it's controlled than buying it off of the street corner from somebody else. And I think I've said that since this started. So I am still in support of this resolve, but maybe only to see how everyone else feels about moving this topic over to the ordinance committee. If this resolve passes, then I will put a paper on the docket, the next docket, to be referred to ordinance so we can discuss how the process went with the first 2, how we should move, you know, going forward. We still have 4 applications that are kind of on the back burner. Do we look at them again? Do we start accepting new ones? I have so many questions. And when I initially heard from Craig about this resolve, I thought it was great because, like I said, a month ago on October 27th or whatever it was when we were with, you know, Misty Mountain, we had an excellent applicant in front of us. And we were worried about double yellow lines and the location being horrible and the traffic being horrible. We knew all those issues when we zoned that stretch of Commercial Street for this type of business. So I am in support of this resolve only to see how many people actually want to try to change some of these things, because I feel that it's flawed. I've spoken to Mr. Hogan. I had a conversation with Mr. Vitz today. I totally get it. Maybe we can, you know, put it on the ballot just to see once the new census is built, because we have to do that months in advance of an election. The election last week was not acceptable, or, you know, to be on a municipal election. Next year is a municipal election. You know, we could do it concurrently with accepting new applications, with not accepting new applications. I'm kind of up for a little bit of discussion because I'm a little confused. We, the council, made these zones, Upper 99, the highway, Commercial Street, parts of Easton Ave, and we're now, oh, well, that location's no good. So where do they go? Do we change the zoning? Should we change the zoning? Should we close it up? Should we make it bigger? Should we remove one street and add a different section? Like, what is good? So that is why I put my name on this resolve. And I think that if it passes, if it fails, it's fine. But I think I will have a paper on the next docket to refer some of this discussion to an ordinance meeting so we can see where it is we go from here. This is a new process that nobody knows anything about, and we really need to try to get it right, because if not, then God knows what can happen, and we could have lawsuits up the yin yang if we don't try to do what we need to do. If we denied somebody based on their location in the middle of a special permit, but their location was zoned through our process, it's crazy. We look like nuts. So I am in support of this resolve. It's just a resolve. That's all that it is. Like I said, only to see, you know, how much support we have moving forward to actually get this into ordinance, and I'm looking forward to some dialogue.
Can I say one thing, Council Seeker, after that eloquent speech?
Go
Do you
ahead.
mind?
Other
So
people have their hands up.
I would just say the same thing as well. I mean, I want to make sure that we're clear with, oh, are they hands up? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I thought
I'm
you were
sorry.
referring to
I didn't
something
notice. Go
Nope,
ahead.
hold on.
I'm
Council
sorry.
Murphy, you're next. I
Sorry,
apologize.
Council Winslow. I'm sorry. I didn't have the right hand side up.
The other lights on, so I thought that I was done. And then when I started talking, everybody started putting their hands up. So
I apologize, Council Winslow.
Councilor Murphy.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I am also in support of this resolve for probably a really basic reason, is that we all go to the voting booth and we hopefully all do our due diligence and, reading the pamphlets that have come out to us, etc. But I truly, in my heart, do not feel that the citizens of Malden really understood what was in front of them. I think we all in this council, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think we all support medicinal marijuana. We've probably all had someone in our family who has needed it and can get a card for it and can acquire it in a very legal fashion. That's not been the issue. I think the issue today within the city of Malden is more of the recreational use. And I'm not sure in my mind from the majority of citizens that I've spoken to, some for, some against, they really understood that we could have a percentage of recreational marijuana establishments that were tied to the existing liquor licenses. And that could increase over time as the density of our city increased. And I truly believe that that's a discussion that we all need to continue, and we need to make sure that everyone's involved in, so that as our city moves forward, that we actually all embrace the direction that we're taking. And that's why I'm going to support this resolve this evening. Unlike you, Councilor Sika, Madam President, I'm not a proponent personally of recreational marijuana, just because of a number of things in my life. But that doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that I truly believe that we need to let the citizens speak once they have all the information about what that last vote meant to them. The other thing that I'd like to say, just on taking a pause, even if this doesn't go forward tonight, is, I think that, our police department, this is the first time they've dealt with this type of situation. Unlike, liquor stores or tobacco stores that they've dealt with over a series of time. I think they need to come to grips with this. And I also think that we need to look. I know we'll never get these statistics, and I think that the statistics are too late in coming to us about how this has affected high school students in other communities, how it's affected expectant mothers in other communities. I mean, I just think there's so many, it's the proverbial onion that I always talk about. Councilor Crow's always talks about the devil in the detail. I think there's so many things that we need to look at to protect our citizens and our youth, that a little bit of a pause, although, yes, from what a number of you have said, many people have put, a lot of money into coming into Malden to create a cannabis establishment. But with the exception of one person that I know of, none of them are really from Malden. They're all outside of Malden. And, I'm not sure this is in the best interest of our community. So a little bit of a pause, as far as I'm concerned, is not necessarily a bad thing and might be in the best interest of every citizen in the city of Malden. So I am in favor of, this resolve this evening. If it doesn't pass, obviously I'm going to be very in favor of having a large discussion in ordinance on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I go really fast, Councilor Murphy, there is an application that is on the table that is actually, the owner is a Malden native.
Right, which one? Right, which I said, with the exception of one.
It's not the one that you were thinking. There's actually one that submitted an application in the first round. He's the Midas location. Mr. Gizzi graduated Malden Catholic, I think, with Councilor Spatafora.
You did.
So there is another one that is already submitted, and it's kind of just holding off. So we do have some, Malden ties or Malden residents that did apply to open up these establishments. So I just wanted to bear,
And that's fine. But what we've seen so far have been
absolutely,
who had ties to Malden, but do not live in Malden anymore.
Yep. Nope. Understandable.
There's a huge difference.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to Councilor Anderson because he hasn't spoken on this topic yet.
That's right, and I had my hand up there before these others. That's right, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I've been a supporter of this paper before us, and I intend to vote in favor of it because I believe that we need to have more discussion. It's a resolve. And let me back up and just once again explain that a resolve is just a sense of the city council. This is generally how the city council feels, that we ought to take a pause and get some more feedback before we do a lot more of the licensing of these marijuana establishments. For the public, they should know that we are the special permit granting authority. And when the applications come before us, it requires 8 votes. We've just squeaked by with 8 votes. So there are some people, we have a screening mechanism, and I believe that we have probably some additional knowledge that we on the council need to be brought up to speed on as to what things should be passing and what things shouldn't. For example, the last time we reviewed the license that was up on from the Kaplan family, it was up on the highway, up on old Bennett Highway, a location that we wrote into the ordinance. And there were people that were concerned about that as a location. So we seem to be fighting against, we seem to be twisting against, sometimes we're for it, sometimes we're not. And I think we just need to talk about it a little bit more. So I'm going to support the resolve that's here on the paper, on the docket tonight, hoping that we can get more discussion. The resolve doesn't say that it's going to go to the voters. It's just the sense of the city council, just to get a sense as to whether or not any of us want to slow this process down a bit. And I've voted for the 2 applications that have come before us. It's required 8 votes, and we've only had 8 that have supported it. So we do have some others to look at. We have one, do I understand, one more in the pipeline? So this resolve that's here before us wouldn't stop us from looking at the other one that's already applied, because I think this resolve calls about not reaching out for any other applications to apply. So for those who have already put the application together, if they're in the pipeline, we can look at those, but I think we got to slow down the process. So I'm going to be voting in favor of this evening, Council President. Thank you.
So Councilor Winslow for the second time.
Yeah, I mean, I do point out back in June of 2018, the council did vote to limit the amount of licenses to 5. Councilor Matheson supported, put out that paper. council did support that. So people have had a lot of time to know, and it could have been back in 2018. There could have been actions to put more limits and take advantage in the 2019 election. So I think it's sort of disingenuous to say that voters in 2017 didn't know what they were doing and haven't had a chance. There's been a long time. I mean, we've been dragging this thing out. It's one of those things. I mean, if the issue is the concern that we have a process and the council can kind of throw that out, well, I will be happy to put in a paper for next time to basically say the city council will not be the special permitting entity. Let's put that on the planning board. That would be the simple way to take us out. We really had a very thorough discussion in terms of the zoning, and I think we made a fair balance. When the initial thing that came from the planning board, there was like 4 places in the city that could have it. It was definitely probably not even in compliance. We came up with some reasonable, expansion, but it doesn't go on Highland Avenue. It doesn't go into the neighborhoods. We had a very thorough discussion. So that's the thing. Why are we continuing to drag stuff out? It's fine if we reopen. There's nothing we can always discuss, but I think it's something to say when this council says to one of our commissions, stop. I mean, first of all, the way we stop things is to actually go through the process of changing the ordinance. And people are entitled to rely on the ordinance as it exists until we go through the right process. And that takes 8 votes to change. And the frustrating thing is I think this resolution could pass for 6, and that does not conform with what we need to do to change an ordinance. So I just can't support this. I just can't support it. Thank you.
Can I just have a point of information real quick?
Go ahead.
Council Winslow, that number 5 though is based on the number of liquor licenses. So if the number of liquor licenses, the way we got to that number was not a guess, right?
Well, we could have had, if we didn't pass that, there wouldn't have been any limit at all.
But it's still tied to the number of liquor licenses. There's still a ratio.
Well,
It's
but
20%.
that was the lowest number we could
Correct.
go to.
Correct.
So, but that didn't mean, at that point, if people thought 5 was too many, people could have taken the time and got it on the 2019 ballot and had less. So I'm just saying there's been plenty of time for the people in the community that are concerned about there being too many licenses to take the initiative. And, I feel like, we can drag out, you can have all these discussions. Sometimes people got to put it out there, get it on the ballot and do something. Instead of just talking, they got to take action. So
well, the way you get on the ballot, Council wins.
Taking action. So
the way you get on the ballot, Council wins, was the council votes. That's how you get on the ballot.
No.
have them take action.
Councilor Di Maria, I've talked to Karen Anderson.
Laura, Councilor Winslow, you're all set. Councilor O'Malley, for the second time, you're next.
Quite an act to follow. I do want to clarify about setting a zone and having something allowed in a zone, and then the actual specific process of granting a special permit. Just because something is allowed in a zone doesn't mean that every applicant that comes before the special permit granting authority has to grant that special permit. I'll give you 2 examples. Technically, kennels are allowed by special permit in industrial 1 and 2, but you wouldn't want to approve a kennel that happens to be next to, let's say, a residential home. That would be a nuisance to that property owner. So in that circumstance, I think it would be reasonable for the special permit granting authority to deny a special permit for a kennel. Strip clubs are allowed by special permit in industrial 1 or 2. Just because strip clubs are allowed doesn't mean that we have to grant every strip club that comes into industrial 1 or 2 if it happens to be next to, say, a daycare, or if it happens to be next to Anthony's. There's extenuating circumstances where you can say no to special permits if it's not in the best interest of the community. Again, I just personally did not feel the traffic situation at the other one was the best location. I think other locations along Commercial Street would have been better. I thought I did a good job explaining that, but that's kind of just where I'm at. So again, without belaboring the topic, looking forward to discussing it in ordinance.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel. For the second one.
I don't want to, Councilor Crowe had her hand up before I.
You were
did. I
first,
think I don't wanna-
actually. It goes in
Oh,
order
she
on
did?
my screen, so you were first.
Oh, my apologies. Okay, so, all right. So my issue here is this is a resolve, right, as Councilor Anderson pointed out. So either A, it doesn't actually accomplish anything because it doesn't bound, it doesn't actually direct the CLEC to not move forward. To do that, we would actually have to pass an ordinance, or it does dictate that they stop. And again, that point was made that we're doing an end run around an ordinance by using 6 votes instead of 8, which brings me to the point of 8 votes. People keep using the 8 votes as in one of the licenses got through like by the skin of their teeth with eight votes. 8 votes to 2/3 proportion of the council, which is a pretty high bar. You set that bar high to make sure there's broad-based support. 8 out of 11 is a fairly high number to require for yes votes for something to get through. So I'm not saying I'm not going to back ordinance changes and a ballot question. Those are the right way to go about it. This does not seem to be the correct way to go about it. I'm not going to vote for this. Thank you.
Councilor Crowe for the second time.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad that Councilor Kamel went first because I actually did have want to ask Attorney Rossetti a question. So since, as Councilor Anderson and Councilor Kamel had mentioned, it is a resolve, which means, you know, it's the sense of the city council that we want to take a pause. Does this bound the CLEC from not taking anything until next November? Or is it, we're just letting them know that, yeah, I mean, to explore these options? Because, I mean, I know it takes a couple months to put something on a ballot, but you know, we have a few months before we have to do that. Or is this bounding them to not entertain anything? Or just, do you understand what my question?
I thank you, Councilor, and I would go back to what Councilor Anderson stated very eloquently, that a resolve is exactly as Councilor Anderson said, it's a sense of the council. The Cannabis Licensing Commission is not bound by the sense of the council.
Okay.
So they can go on and continue to operate as they're operating. They're not required to stop soliciting applications.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Councilor Linehan, first time, I think?
Yes. Thank you, Madam President. I hadn't spoken up until now, mostly because I didn't want to be redundant, but also just kind of out of respect for a process that largely took place before my time on the council. I'm understanding, though, that as a discussion of a resolve is meant to kind of take the temperature and give the sense of the council, and I don't really want to just cast a vote before explaining my thinking. So, you know, just speaking personally, I voted in favor of cannabis as a resident when it was on the ballot. I sincerely believe that it sets a bad precedent, you know, to assume that voters didn't understand how that ratio would be set or that what it is that they were voting on. I think we've had plenty of opportunity to put this on the ballot, or we could do so again in the future. And I don't really think it's fair to those that are midway through the process right now to take this step. I share Councilor Spatafora's sentiment, you know, that we've approved 2 good locations already. I definitely hear concerns from residents that at some point we may reach a saturation or an imbalance of competition in the city. But as it stands right now, we have a logical, clear process before us to kind of vet proposals and according to the zoning that we've set forth, as you mentioned. So I do hope we can find an appropriate way to continue this discussion in ordinance, but I've decided not to support the resolve tonight.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anybody else have any comments? I don't see any hands up. I am going.
I do. I have one thing.
Go ahead.
The other thing, which I forgot to mention too, was, you know, one thing I am in support of, other communities have done to limit the burden of traffic and impact, is the delivery option at the time of the creation of this ordinance, the state didn't allow you to have delivery options at the local level. You can now have that at the local level. So if it does go to, if we do send a paper ordinance in the future, I would be supportive of that measure too, as well as offering that delivery option. Because I think it helps the business. Certainly, we get to retain the tax because it starts point of origin. So it's a good opportunity. But those are things, like I said, that wasn't around at the state level when we first went into it. Now we do. And I would be supporting that initiative if it does ever get a paper go to ordinance.
Thank you. I'm gonna leave this topic with this. I'm gonna go back to Councilor Winslow's comments about we should have let the planning board be the special permitting process for this. I wanted that. And I think Councilor Winslow, you drafted this ordinance and you did not, if I remember correctly. You and Councilor O'Malley were against having the planning board be the special permitting granting authority. I wanted nothing to do with this. So it's funny how the tables have turned, and a few years later, you are now saying we should have had the planning board be the special permit granting authority.
I had my ear to the other counselors. That's I just had that sense.
That made me laugh because I remember that quite well. We were on the table over to the right, the big table, and I remember not wanting to touch this topic with a 10-foot pole. And I was the underdog in that particular discussion, but it was funny to hear you mention that.
Foresight.
I do remember that. Councilor Di Maria, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think thank you, Madam President. In a sense, maybe could we make, would there be any appetite for, even though it's a resolve, I totally get it. Would it make it better if we were to put a time limit on the pause? And I kind of through the chair, maybe go to the sponsor, Councilor Spatafora. What would your thought be if we did like a 6-month pause or a 9-month pause or something, so that the applicants know that our door is not closed, but you know, and to kind of give some guideline to this quote pause. Totally just throwing it out there.
Councilor Di Maria, can I answer that? Councilor, the attorney Rossetti basically said that the CLEC, whether this resolve passes or not, they can still move forward. They have this resolve means nothing to them. So they can still move on with their application. So amending it to put a time frame wouldn't necessarily be necessary. Right? Mr. Rossetti, do you agree?
I guess it depends on how you frame the resolve. If you want to accurately express the sense of the council, and it's the sense of the council that there should be a time limit placed on the introspection, if you will, then the council is certainly free to amend the resolve accordingly so that that sense can be expressed. But in terms of a legal effect, again, it's simply an expression of the sense of this body, and it's not legally binding on CLC. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Does it make sense to you, Councilor Di Maria?
It does. Yeah, that's fine. Yep. Thank you.
Councilor Spatafora, I don't have a problem amending the resolve to have maybe not a 6 or a 9, but maybe like a 2 or 3 month time frame, just to see if we can figure out, you know, what we didn't like that didn't work, and then revisit it. Do you think a 3-month time frame is doable?
I don't have to me, this wasn't to stop, you know, I think the marijuana bill. I mean,
this for me was more of, you know, what do we want to see moving forward type of a thing, not to halt.
Correct. You don't want to waste any candidate's time and money. I understood. Yep, completely understood. And I mean, I will do whatever the will of the council is, and I think then the next thing would be to reach out to the entire cannabis committee and ask them what the ordinance, I don't know what the ordinance, I don't know from a time limit, I don't know how many ordinances they're recommending or what, how many, what their thought process is. So maybe 3 months, it could be the smartest time frame, and then I'll ask the chairman to send me his ordinances and we can start that process. I mean, I don't have a problem either way.
To stop it for 6 to 9 months, but I think if 3 months seems doable to everybody else, if Councilor Di Maria wants to make a motion to amend the resolve to include a 3-month time frame, that's something that I could support. I don't know about anybody else, but.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to, sorry, I apologize. I definitely would love to just hear what everybody else, I mean, before I make that unless just for the sake of time, we just move forward with it. I mean, whatever. I'm here, I just can't get back on.
Oh, that's okay.
Hold on, let me try this. Hold on a second. I don't know.
Okay. I thought it was a neat idea. If you don't,
Make it a little bit more collaborative for everybody, so we have a timeline and, but I could certainly just move the vote, just move the vote.
Okay.
Move the vote.
Okay. On Councilor Di Maria's motion to pass this resolve, seconded by who said? Councilor Anderson?
I can second it.
Said move the vote?
I think it was Council Condon.
Oh,
But I'll second it.
sorry, your voices sound similar to me this evening. So
I was
Councilor Di Maria,
talking to my
by Councilor Condon, the clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Yes.
Kamel,
No.
Condon,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Di Maria,
No.
Linehan,
No.
Murphy,
Yes.
Murphy, yes. O'Malley,
Nay.
Spatafora,
Yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, no.
Sika,
Sika, yes.
passes 6-5.
Next order of business.
Paper 280-20, order be it hereby ordained that the revised ordinances of 2020, Chapter 11 be amended to add Section 11.0.155, maintenance of private fencing next to public property containing provisions related to fencing adjoining streets, sidewalks, and trails by adding the following language. A, every owner of property adjoining any public or private street, alley, sidewalk, trail, or other public land shall ensure any fencing along the perimeter of the property remains erect and that any barbed or raised wire remains strung at least 7 feet above ground level. No such owner shall allow any perimeter fence, barbed or raised wire to encroach or above any public street, private street, alley, sidewalk, trail, or other public land or otherwise pose a hazard to members of the public lawfully using such areas. B, as of November 1st, razor wire may not be installed or replaced on any fence of the city of Malden. C, this ordinance may be enforced in the manner provided in Mass General Laws of 40 plus in 21D by city code enforcement officers, agents of the Inspectional Service Department or Department of Public Works, supervisor personnel. Penalties for violations of the ordinance will be strictly enforced and are as follows. 1, first offense shall be written a 30-day warning. 2, second offense, $300 for each continuing day of violation. D, the city may remove the fencing and wiring if 1, such fencing and wiring has caused an injury to a member of the public present or a public property, or 2, if the property owner fails to comply within 3 days after notice of the second offense. The city may seek reimbursement for the cost of removal of the fencing and wiring in violation of ordinance from property owner.
I think there's a motion to a roll, right, Council Seeker?
To ordain.
Ordain, I'm sorry. Okay. We did this in November, correct? Yeah, okay.
Okay. Councilor Spatafora.
It's Councilor Winslow's paper, so if he wants to speak, I just want to make sure we were doing the right process.
No, just motion to ordain.
Seconded.
Okay, on Councilor Winslow's motion to ordain, seconded by Councilor O'Malley, the clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Anderson, yes.
Kamel,
Yes.
Condon,
Condon, yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Di Maria,
Yes.
Linehan,
Linehan, yes.
Murphy,
Murphy, yes.
O'Malley,
Yes.
Spatafora,
Spatafora, yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Sika.
Sika, yes.
Paper is ordained.
Next order of business.
And the committee reports paper 376-20, personnel appointments. Personnel Appointment Committee will make a recommendation to fill a vacant seat of associate member of the Energy Efficiency Commission.
On Councilor Crow's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor, excuse me, call the roll.
Anderson,
Yes.
Kamel,
Yes.
Condon,
Condon, yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Di Maria,
Di Maria, yes.
Linehan,
Linehan, yes.
Murphy,
Murphy, yes.
O'Malley,
O'Malley, yes.
Spatafora,
Spatafora, yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Sika.
Sika, yes.
Committee report is received 11-0.
Councilor Crowe for the committee.
Thank you, Madam President. So last night, the Personnel and Appointments Committee met to interview 3 candidates for the associate member of the Energy Efficiency Committee. And each of the candidates are very highly qualified and would bring lots of perspective to the committee. But after our interviews, the committee unanimously voted to recommend Matt Walsh to the position of associate member of the Energy Efficiency Committee. I'll keep it brief because of the hour, but Matt has been living in Malden for a year, and he's background in environmental and sustainability started in his college, Amherst College, where he got them to commit to carbon neutrality and undertake a few waste reduction programs. He actually got the president of the college to sign on to a letter to legislators encouraging carbon pricing and joined the Roosevelt Network, in which he's a student policymaker working on sustainability. He became the National Energy and Environmental Policy Coordinator for the network, which was involved working with students from all of the chapters to draft environmental policy protocols. So he really felt like, and so did the committee, that he could put his experience to use in our community, really thinking about waste reduction education for people around recycling and clean recycling. And it feels like that, he can help make, we can all help make a huge difference with even some solar used in the rooftops of maybe the schools, and really some of the smaller things. So I think we, the committee, really felt like he had a great breadth of knowledge around energy efficiency and lots of other things that we really need to be looking towards. So the committee voted again unanimously to recommend Mr. Walsh's appointment to the Energy Efficiency Committee. So I make a motion, I see hands, but I make a motion that we appoint Matt Walsh to the associate member of the Energy Efficiency Committee.
Second.
I would second that.
Okay, Councilor Spatafora.
Favor of this, and this is something, little personal pet peeve. I know Council Kamel sits in that committee now. This is probably one of the, I don't mean to diminish the other committees, and it's certainly not as sexy as marijuana, but this committee to me, it does a lot of great things for the city, not in terms of just for the planet, which is the big one, right? But has brought a lot of money to the city and continue to do so. And I think based on that resume, he's certainly not only qualified, he's overqualified. But these are the committees that I think the unsung heroes of this council or this community. They don't get paid. I've had the ability to sit on here, but they're doing yeoman's work not only for us, but for the generation after us in terms of environmental. So 100% support of this. I think it's a great committee, and I look forward to him, Matt, using his certainly education and experience to help Malden get to the next level in terms of environmental. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel.
I want to thank Council Spatafora for that. I would object. I think we're pretty sexy. Green's sexy color. I also want to thank Councilor Crowe and the Personnel Committee for giving us a great pick. I looked at all the resumes. They did all look great. But Matt certainly is going to bring a lot to the table. And then I want to thank the whole committee the existing committee for what they do well, not every day. Every time we meet, it's not every day. But I do want to say that a lot of it is, I want to give some kudos to Eric Rubin. A lot of it is us coming up with great ideas and being like, Eric, go do this. And I think a lot of it, we wouldn't be able to get it done without him. So I want to give him kudos to that. So we're very excited about this and wholeheartedly support this. Thanks.
I don't remember who seconded that.
I did.
Okay.
I maybe Council DeMaria did. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was just enthusiastic.
Okay. So on Councilor Crow's motion to confirm this appointment, seconded by Councilor DeMaria, the clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Anderson, yes.
Kamel,
Mel, yes.
Condon,
Condon, yes.
Crow,
Yes.
DeMaria,
DeMaria, yes.
Linehan,
Linehan, yes.
Murphy,
Murphy, yes.
O'Malley,
Yes.
Spatafora. Spatafora.
Sorry, I was on mute. Spatafora, yes.
Okay. Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Sika.
Sika, yes.
Okay, Mr. Walsh is confirmed 11-0.
Next order of business.
Paper 377-20, committee report, public property, paper number 219-20, petition, Celco Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless, and Nexia Solutions, Inc., 5 small cell infrastructure granted location, 490 Eastern Ave, 77 Revere Street, 1279 Salem Street, 12 Fairfield Street, 135 Main Street.
On Councilor O'Malley's motion to receive the committee report, the clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Anderson, yes.
Kamel,
Mel, yes.
Condon,
Condon, yes.
Crow,
Yes.
DeMaria,
Yes.
Linehan,
Linehan, yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
O'Malley,
Yes.
Spatafora,
Spatafora, yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Sika.
Sika, yes.
Committee report is received.
Councilor O'Malley for the committee.
Thank you very much, Council President Sika. This particular set of small cell antennas is, as you can see, Celco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless. The committee voted unanimously to report these out favorably for passage by the full council. I do want to say that not all applicants are equal when it comes to this. Many of them come prepared. Many of them do not come prepared. This set of applications were represented very competently, and I would recommend that we pass these. I don't personally enjoy the fact that we're passing so many of these, and I do think that we may want to take a look at our ordinance. Some of the feedback that we have received from residents who are in the industry is that we really need to start looking at the cumulative radiation that these are giving off. Right now, we are just getting reports from the individual applicants about how much RF radiation is coming off the individual unit that they're proposing, but they're not taking into consideration the cumulative effect of the other ones in the area. That's something we probably should look into. Something I just wanted to talk about as we're moving this forward. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. So is that a motion to grant?
Second,
So moved.
Okay. On Councilor O'Malley's motion to grant these petitions, seconded by Councilor Winslow, the clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Anderson, yes.
Kamel,
Mel, yes.
Condon,
Condon, yes.
Crow,
Yes.
DeMaria,
DeMaria, yes.
Linehan,
Linehan, yes.
Murphy.
Present.
What did you say?
Present.
Present. O'Malley,
Yes.
Spatafora,
Spatafora, yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Sika.
Sika, yes.
Petition's granted, license is granted.
Councilor Spatafor, you have your hand up.
Madam President, just through you to Councilor O'Malley, I think the chairman of Public Property, correct, Councilor O'Malley? I forget.
Correct.
My suggestion, just take it as you will, maybe next time we have, if there's more in front of you, we have these all plotted on a GIS map so we can get a better understanding of how close they all are, based on, your thought process. Like you said, we're only measuring in one, but maybe visually, if we put them on a map, we get a better understanding as a council and as a city where they all are clustered. I don't know if we can do it. I'm sure we can because we have a poll number, but that would be my suggestion moving forward.
Well, it's funny, through the chair, if I may. It's funny you mentioned that. I have been asking for the utility maps of our public infrastructure in the city. We grant easements and we grant permission and licenses for different utilities to be in our community. So I think the first step is for us to know where all these poles are and where all this infrastructure is so that we can map it. But I think you're right. This is something that would be great on a GIS map, and I'm sure Steve Fama would be willing to step up to the plate. He's always been very helpful whenever we asked. Thank you for that idea.
You're welcome. Thank you, Madam President. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next order of business.
Paper 378-20, committee report, public properties, paper 354-9, petition, externet petitions filed for small cells, 57-59 Fulton Street, acre 2026 Coleman Street, 60 Coleman Street, acre 96-102 Coleman Street, 54 Beach Street, 118-120 Beach Street, 376-378 Broadway, 9 Maynard Street, 73 Maynard Street, 26 Monroe Street, 16 Olive Street, 32 Westmere Road, 902 Salem Street.
Motion to receive committee report.
On Councilor O'Malley's motion to receive the committee report, the clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Anderson, yes.
Kamel,
Kamel, yes.
Condon,
Condon, yes.
Crow,
Sorry, yes.
Di Maria,
Yes.
Linehan,
Yes.
Murphy,
Murphy, yes.
O'Malley,
Yes.
Spatafora,
Spatafor, yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Sika.
Yes.
Committee report is received.
Councilor O'Malley for the committee.
This set of petitions, I would say, was not the same experience as the last. Figuring out the information for this one was particularly difficult. I don't want to speak bad about anyone, but I would say that we did reject some of these petitions, not the petitions that were before you, but the packet here that was for Extenet. We did actually not choose to move forward with some of those, and those will be coming out next week or the week after for formal rejection or a motion to deny the petitions. But these ones we are recommending they move forward because after a lot of back and forth and work, we were able to get to a point where we think that they do meet the ordinance. I do see Councilor Winslow's hand raised, so I will defer to Councilor Winslow if he has any additional feedback that he'd like to provide.
Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I mean, we did, it would have been better. The applicant could have done a little bit better presentation so we could have more clearly understood things, but we did go through the information they provided and we did hold off a couple weeks because their packet was incomplete. They did complete that information. We went through that and, we rejected some because they were in too close proximity to homes or trees or had some other issues. But these that we did find this set to be in compliance with the ordinance and complete in terms of the radiation reports and that type of thing. So I would make a motion to approve these licenses. Thank you.
Councilor, I just saw another hand, but now I don't see it anymore. Okay.
I'll second Councilor Winslow's motion.
Okay. Councilor Winslow's motion to grant these petitions, seconded by Councilor O'Malley. The clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Anderson, yes.
Kamel,
Kamel, yes.
Condon,
Condon, yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Di Maria,
Di Maria, yes.
Linehan,
Linehan, yes.
Murphy,
Present.
O'Malley.
Murphy present.
I got it, yep.
Yes.
O'Malley, Spatafora,
Spatafor, yes.
Winslow,
Winslow, yes.
Sika.
Yes.
Petitions are granted.
Councilor Kamel, did you have your hand up for this topic?
Nope, just
Go ahead.
early. Just trying to be early for personal privilege.
Oh, you guys are fast this evening. All right, so the docket is clear.
Wow, he's jumping the gun.
Yeah.
Gonna be his anniversary or something.
Councilor Kamel has his first. He wins the prize. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a wholehearted congratulations to President-elect Joseph Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. It was pretty historic election for a variety of different reasons, and it looks like we're headed to our first female vice president, which is phenomenal. Malden, we went almost 3-1, I think, for President-elect Biden, so it's pretty exciting. And I'd like to just sort of share my hopes and wishes that we proceed in a peaceful transfer of power like we've done for over 200 years. And I would hope that we all call for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Crowe, you're next.
Thank you, Madam President. I echo Councilor Kamel's thoughts to President-elect Biden. And we all have to rally around, come together back as a country and move us forward. I also just wanted to say a heartfelt thank you to all the veterans, as tomorrow is Veterans Day. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you continue to do for our community and for our country. So,
Thank you, Councilor Crowe. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you very much, Council President. To echo Councilor Crowe's sentiments, thank you to all our veterans. We are a free country because of the work that they have done throughout the year, which kind of goes to exactly what Councilor Kamel was saying. It's very important that our military make sure that there is a very peaceful transfer of power, and hopefully all of the entities and all of the different branches of our government understand the importance of making sure that tradition continues. I also want to wish the Indian community of Malden a happy Diwali, which is the Festival of Lights that will be happening this weekend. Aside from that, I have a teeth cleaning finally. I'm really excited about that. I go through my calendar and see what's up, and that was there. So
That's really personal privilege.
Oh, that's so funny, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Winslow.
I do want to follow up with Councilor Crowe's thanking of our veterans. I think at this time we do have people and in service across the world, and people who have come back, and their service is very important, and it's their service is what's kept us free and as free as a country. So thank you. And then I also wanted to remind people we have the Affordable Housing Trust has a housing survey out there right now. So if you hadn't had a chance, this is will give some guidance to the Affordable Housing Trust as to what priorities we should set in terms of, should we focus on making single family homes affordable, apartments, fighting evictions, other type of things. So do take a look at that survey, and that'll help us shape that. And then on Thursday, December 3rd at 6:30 p.m., we will have a Zoom meeting to talk about the affordable housing plan that will sort of report on the results of that study. So so mark that on your calendars so that you can find out about what the trust is doing, and what I think we have almost $700,000 in that trust now. So to help and make a determination that how to spend that money, and how we should focus on getting more money for priorities. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor DeMaria.
Thank you, Madam President. I too want to wish all our veterans in Malden and around America very happy Veterans Day. I have 2 nephews that are veterans. My brother was a veteran. My dad was a veteran. So we kind of missed the parade, but happy Veterans Day. We're all free and because of their service. Also, I want to say we did a great job tonight. It was a great meeting, but I do want to give kudos to our clerk for reading all our public comments and agonizing through it all. And I think that the process really worked well. So big thanks, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President. Not to be redundant, but I certainly want to recognize our veterans who went to service to preserve our freedoms. And I'm sure the entire Malden City Council thanks you for that. I was just looking, October 20th docket. There's some 20 small cells that have been referred to committee. I think 14 of them in Ward 2 and another 6 in the West End. So that's just in a small section of this city. So things seem to be really spiraling out of control here. Where does this end? I'm not sure, but gonna have to take a look at these, how close they are to the homes. Beyond that, we have two plans that we put forth for Deva Park. And if anybody's interested in the design that we're proposing, we have two very similar designs. And it's in the front door of the Irish American. You can see it right through the door. It's on an easel, and it shows you in detail what's proposed. And if you have any questions, you can contact myself. My number's in the book, or Janelle DeVitz, the chairperson of the committee. So I thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Well, as a United States Navy veteran, I thank you all for your well wishes to us veterans. I will tell you that I served proudly and honorably during the Vietnam era conflict. I served a few years aboard the aircraft carrier Franklin D. Roosevelt, and I look at that time of service with great pride and almost think that it's a shame that we've stopped having young people somehow provide some service, whether it's military service or other service to our country. I think having served in the Navy, I mean, I wasn't certainly not. I didn't join the Navy because I had any great political ambitions. It was the thing to do as an 18-year-old back in the day. So I think I gained a great deal from that, and think that young people today, if they were to either do military service or some kind of community service, giving back to their country for a few years, I think is good for all of us. Secondly, I'd like to point out I've heard my colleagues before me talk about the pleasure that we have of having our presidential election behind us. I'm so happy that President-elect Joe Biden Jr. and Kamala Harris have been the standard bearers, and we know that Joe Biden has been running for office for the presidency for maybe this is his third attempt. The first attempt for Kamala Harris, who is history making, the first woman, the first Black woman, the first Asian American woman, the first daughter, a child of an immigrant, to have broken a glass ceiling that has been a significant glass ceiling has been really something that we're all proud of. She's a graduate of if for those who hear about HBCU, Historical Black College and University, she's a graduate of Howard University. So she's done a lot of firsts, and we're looking really forward to her. The comments have been made about the hope for a peaceful transition of government. And I'd just like to emphasize that that's more than just a simple phrase. We are in a very delicate situation now. Typically the peaceful transition means that the person who loses graciously gives up the presidency. And in that process, the new incumbent administration gets a chance to get the keys to the house. It's a chance to get the personal presidential briefs, gets to know about about our top secrets and so forth. Well, this transition hasn't taken place yet, and the longer that's delayed, it's a terrible stain, I believe, on a show of democracy around the country. When we see things like this happening in other parts of the world, we'd be shaking our finger. But it's happening right here where we're not having a peaceful transition. So we're just a city council, but I'm certainly glad to hear my colleagues as well as myself speak up about the need to have a smooth and speedy transition so we can go on with the business at hand. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy, you're next.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to comment about something that I did this evening that very rare for me in my decades here, and that was voting present. As we were talking about the cell towers, small cell towers, and I truly believe that that is something that the city council really needs to look at in depth. Once again, it's the onion, peel it away. We've talked about it over, a number of times in different committees, but it's invading us. I laughingly at one point called it skyline litter, but I think it's become more than skyline litter, because litter is something that you don't want to necessarily see, but you can go pick up. Small cell towers are not something you can go pick up. There's something that has, radiation associated with them. And it has, I think, a number of drawbacks to our citizens from a public safety and health perspective. And I think from a city council perspective, it's something that we all need to really just kind of get our teeth into and decide how we want to move forward with this. Because, as I believe it was Councilor Conan said, the proliferation is now happening in Ward 2 and Ward 3. I think you said the West End, so I'm assuming that's Ward 3. And I think it's something we cannot take our eyes off of, and we really need to, make sure we double down on understanding the impact this is going to have in our community. So I hope as a council, as we move forward into next year, that we will take this up as an initiative that is of extreme importance to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Spatafora, you're next.
Oh, Madam President, may I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
Councilor Anderson, thank you for your service.
Yep.
And for everybody else in our community who has served, and all our veterans.
Thank you.
Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam President. Not to be redundant, I know I'm probably the last one I speak. It's almost done, or maybe yourself. First thing is Happy Veterans Day. It's always coincidence when we have Veterans Day around a presidential election. They kind of go hand in hand. The military allows us and affords that right to vote. So it's important that we thank them not only just on 11/11, but every day. And the other thing too is I think today is the 245th anniversary of the Marines. I know Councilor Anderson is a Navy, thinks the Marines not that important. There's that rivalry there, but it is the 245th birthday of the Marines. Sort of welcome that as well. And again, I think it's always pretty cool to watch any election, but certainly this one, just because the amount of people that voted and how expensive these elections get on the national level and certainly in the Senate level. But as Councilor Anderson said, we're just a city council, but I think it's important that democracy shines regardless of who's running in what capacity, and that there has to be a transition of power that's done peacefully, because we are looked upon as one of the greatest nations, and some of the other countries don't have that ability to vote. And when power is usually taken, it's usually by blood or some type of war. So always proud to be American, certainly around Veterans Day, but certainly around large presidential elections. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. And on behalf of the chair, I too want to wish everybody a happy Veterans Day tomorrow. Thank you, Councilor Anderson, for your service. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the mayor. He's amazing. I had the privilege of hanging out with him for an hour this morning as a mask man in Linden Square. Him and I passed out bags and bags full of masks. I think 8 o'clock in the morning was a little too early for some. I didn't get quite the warm welcome that I thought we were going to get. As the morning went on, it got a little bit better and people weren't as nervous to roll down their window. I was told that Maplewood had an amazing one the other day, and it was such a warm welcome in Maplewood Square. Linden Square, not so much, but like I said,
Today, not the beginning of the day. so.
morning started to go on. You know, people grabbed their coffee. He was in the line at Dunkin' Donuts. He was on the 108 bus. He was all over the place. He was on the bike path. People, you know, were happy and were very appreciative for us giving out the City of Malden masks. So it was a fun morning with the mayor. He was totally in his element. That's right where he loves to do things like that, and I love seeing him do things like that. I look forward to his next mask man debut. I think he's going to a couple other wards. He had mentioned he was going to reach out to a few others, so it's a lot of fun, and you'll have a great time doing it. It was happy. I couldn't understand why people said no to a free mask, but whatever. To each
Well,
his
they thought you were trying to sell them something,
Yeah.
that's why.
I had a big, huge sign on a bag that says.
They thought you were hustling in the street
Yeah.
corner.
And the other guy had a cape on. I don't know, Sika.
Yeah.
It said free mask, and I was putting it in people's windows, and it was funny how there was a few people that literally looked at their phone and didn't look up. They didn't even want to say no thank you to me. It was pretty crazy. So I had a wonderful morning with the mayor. He's the best. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. The clerk, call the roll. Can we take that as everyone wants to go to bed?
Just give me a yeah or no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes.
Meeting is
Good night,
adjourned.
everyone. See you next week.